Well, there goes the Daverhood. Yes, it is time for our 948th episode of Dave's Gone By, but more importantly, for this particular episode, it is our 19th annual Total Theater Broadway special. Can't believe it. The show's been on for almost 22 years, but for now 19 of them, we have done a special celebrating the Broadway theater because for 35 years now, I guess, I've been a journalist for the arts and a Broadway theater critic and off-Broadway as well, and wanted to celebrate that and share that because over the years, even though I'm not even in New York anymore, I care, and still love theater and Broadway. So I've got my darling and adorable wife helping out with the program. I'm Dave Lefkowitz. You guys are you guys. And it is June 15th, 2024, the day before the Tony Awards, the 77th annual Tony Awards, are happening live. They're going to be at the Koch Theater in Lincoln Center. If you want to watch the pre-show, like the red carpet and all that, that's about an hour and a half before the regular show, and is available to everybody free if you sign up for Pluto TV, which is free. But if you want to watch the actual Tony Awards from 8 until 11, then you got to get Paramount or I think Hulu, or if you still have, if anybody still has regular TV, it's on regular plain old CBS. But if you're one of the streamy people, then you kind of have to pay for it or get one of those, 1 week free trial kind of things of Paramount from CBS. But either way, anyway, this is free. You're watching this on Facebook. And welcome. I'm sorry?
Will you be making, you have a lot of guests, but will you also make your predictions of shows?
Actually, I've seen only 2 of this year's productions, plus 1 on video. So I'm really not capable. I'm not in a position. I can sort of predict kind of the feeling, and we will get into that. But in terms of lead actor categories or anything like that, I'm kind of useless. But I'm still celebrating, and the important thing is I'm going to be talking to people who know, especially this year, a lot more than I do about all the different categories. Because here's the deal. We have experts, we have theater critics, we have a Tony-nominated sound designer, Leah Gelpe. She designed the show Mary Jane, the audio for the show.
And a lot of times you've had a lot of people, not Andre DeShields. Who was on your show that won?
Andre DeShields won.
Yeah. But he was on your show before, and then he won, right?
Yeah, and also I think, Bill T. Jones, the choreographer, he became a winner. He was on the show. So yeah, so you never know. That's the luck of the draw. Plus, we're very, very lucky to have theater critics like Leslie Hoban Blake, Frank Burd from Philadelphia. He'll be joining us because the Wilma Theater has won the Regional Tony Award. That's not like nominated or anything. It's just announced. And Frank Burd is a longtime Philadelphia area theater critic. He will be with us. Charlie Gross, Eva Heinemann, Brian Scott Lipton, Carey Purcell, David Sheward, Snook, and Zachary Stewart. Plus, we'll have trivia. Plus, we will have Rabbi Saul Solomon with a rabbinical reflection, kind of his mini sermon, all about the Tony nominees and, well, especially the Jewish Tony nominees, because he's Rabbi Saul Solomon. But before all of that, we have our first guest ready in the Daverhood. He's Zachary Stewart. He's been with us a couple of times before on these Tony broadcasts. So let me get my questions ready for him, because he's, like a lot of the critics today, he'll be covering a specific category of the Tony Awards, a particular topic, and he's got a good one. He has original score. So as Zachary joins the program via Zoom, so it always takes people a minute or two to be able to log in, but I can tell you that Zachary Stewart is the chief critic at theatermania.com. He's also a member voter of the New York Drama Critics Circle and for the Drama Desk as well. So I see Zachary. Zachary, do you see and hear me?
I do. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning to you, Zach, and so great to have you in the Daverhood. So we'll talk about like your favorite show or 2 of the season, but before, let's get immediately to your category, which is original score. I'll read the nominees for you. There's Days of Wine and Roses by Adam Gettle. You've got Here Lies Love, which was a collaboration between David Byrne and Fat Boy Slim. The Outsiders, with Jamestown Revival doing the score on that. Stereophonic with Will Butler doing the songs. Suffs with Shayna Taub creating that. And those are the categories. You can also talk about the snubs if you wish. But Zachary Taylor, welcome to the Daverhood.
Zachary Stewart, actually. Zachary Taylor was our 12th president. He died of cherries and milk, I believe. I always like to tell border guards this when they, when you're returning stateside and they have that extra level of security. That's how I show I'm a real American. Let me know that story.
I've already made my first flub of the day. I'm going to keep count. So sorry about that.
Take the flub candle.
Here's my flub candle. That my wife. Oh, it's
light it up.
So I'm sorry, Zachary Stewart.
That's quite all right.
Original score.
Yes, this is an interesting category this year because I think there would actually be a couple of really strong contenders were not the shows already closed. You mentioned Adam Gettle's Days of Wine and Roses, which is, this kind of beautiful masterpiece that they'll be teaching in MFA musical writing classes forever and ever and ever. Gorgeous, that closed this winter. I always feel like there's this bias against closed shows because what are these awards really for, right? They're not actually about awarding the best merit, right? What is really the best there? It's about juicing ticket sales. And if you can't, if there's not a way of doing it, I think a lot of the voters, again, half of which are appointed by the Broadway League, this is the Association of Producers and Landlords, I don't think they're quite so interested in voting for that. So I think Days of Wine and
if something's going to be able to tour, they're very
well, that's right, yeah. And I'm somewhat skeptical Days of Wine and Roses, will. And as wonderful as the score was, Here Lies Love, I think, is a bit more commercial. That was a real heartbreak of this season. A huge amount of money was poured into retrofitting the Broadway theater and turning it into a nightclub. And I think if that show were still running today, it might be the favorite for Best Score and Best Musical, but it closed. It's not around anymore. So that leaves.
I'm going to hold you to that because is that fair? It was a concept album first, years ago, Burn and Fat Boy Slim put together, and then turned into a theatrical event. So really, doesn't it deserve a Grammy more than a Tony for Best Score?
Yes, that's very possible, right? I mean, there's so many contradictions in this. Obviously they have lobbyists that are good enough to get it on this, in this category, nominated at all, rather than, this is contrived. This is a jukebox musical. I think it was always written with the stage in mind. So, I suppose you could also discount Phantom of the Opera or most of what Andrew Lloyd Webber has written because they often start as concept albums as well. Jesus Christ Superstar. I would discount them for other reasons, but they've been a part of this conversation for years. So, originally speaking, when it comes to original musicals that are still running in this category, it's The Outsiders and it's Suffs. So I think what's really interesting about this category is the presence of a play, which is Will Butler's Music for Stereophonic. This play, I don't know if you've spoken to your viewers about it yet or not, but it's about...
No, please, we just started the show, so please, yeah.
Yeah, it's this 3-hour play. It is a thinly veiled dramatization of the recording of Rumors, the Fleetwood Mac album, but it's not that, it's a different band and they have all new music. And that's been, so it's not a musical, it's a play, but it's very musical. It's using music in the storytelling. And so its presence in this category, I think, might represent history, depending on how it turns out, because no play has ever triumphed over a musical in this category. Plays have won this category. The weird pandemic year of 2020, Christopher Nightingale's score for A Christmas Carol won. But the entire category was just incidental music for plays that year because a lot of the big musicals just hadn't opened. Or they were jukebox musicals like Moulin Rouge, and so they weren't eligible for this category. So this may actually be the first year that a play triumphs over a musical in this category, and I think that would get a lot of people clucking about the health and the state of the musical art form on Broadway.
Well, no, because I've listened to the cast album of Stereophonic, and it feels like I mean, it's not like 3 or 4 songs are in there. That's a full album's worth of musical. You might as well call it a musical or a play with music. But how do you feel about that? I mean, are you a Stereophonics fan, or do you prefer Outsiders, or where are your feelings leaning?
I thought that I voted for Stereophonic. I thought the play was great. I think it uses music in a really interesting way, and I think that Broadway should be welcoming to that. I mean, when these awards started in 1947, this category wasn't actually, Best Musical wasn't actually a category in the first couple of years. It only came in the very late 40s in 1949. And so this gives you a sense of just how young the concept of the book musical really is. It's less than a century old. It's not like opera. It's still a relatively new form. And we associate it with Broadway, right? We consider it to be like the American art form. But I think there are other ways that you can use music to tell stories on stage. And so I really appreciate the arrival of Stereophonic here because it's a reminder of that. And I would like to see more of that. I love musicals. I love, love, love book musicals. I think it's a wonderful thing, but I don't actually think they always have to be the star of the show on Broadway. And this year, uh, without any clear frontrunner for Best Musical, I don't think they are. I think it's actually a play that may be the big story of the night.
Well, so that is your prediction, and is it also your hope? I mean, what was your favorite? What was your favorite score of the season?
Stereophonic.
It was Stereophonic. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you what your favorite play and or musical was on or off Broadway? Like 1 or 2 of your favorite things the whole season, besides Stereophonic.
This was an incredible year for commercial off Broadway. And there are a couple of shows from this past season that are making the leap to Broadway just for the summer, kind of a short summer stint. There's Max Wolf Friedrich's Job, which was very good. It wasn't my favorite of the season. I think the funniest play of the season was Cola Scola's Oh Mary, which is also moving to Broadway. It's going into the Lyceum. This is a gleefully inaccurate story of Mary Todd Lincoln, washed up cabaret chanteuse, languishing away in the White House under her closeted husband. Very funny, kind of a throwback to Charles Ludlam's Ridiculous Theater, if any of your listeners remember him.
Or
And
Edward Quinton and when and Charles Bush too a little bit of that.
that's right. Yeah, this is kind of the next generation in that niche of theater. Very funny. I do think there is something to be said about commercial off Broadway and the limits of venues, because there are some shows that I think perhaps should live off Broadway, that Broadway isn't really for them. I'm thinking Little Shop of Horrors is the classic example. Had a Broadway run, did okay, but it really thrives off Broadway. It's now entering its 5th year in its off Broadway revival. There was a musical that started at Playwrights Horizons called Teeth by Anna K. Jacobs and Anna K. Jacobs and Michael R. Jackson.
Yeah.
Michael R. Jackson, yes. And it was about a carnivorous vagina. And this was very funny, very in kind of the realm of Little Shop of Horrors. And that will be having an extended off-Broadway run, a commercial run. So yeah, those were all excellent. And then I have to, of course, mention Dead Outlaw, which was the very best musical of the year. It was about a corpse that was sent on a sideshow across the country for decades and decades and decades before anyone discovered this was an actual human body. Very dark, from the writers of The Band's Visit, an excellent score. And from what I understand, that's circling several Broadway houses right now and may have actually landed on one that's unannounced.
Is that a show that you feel could or should move to Broadway, or would it be better off staying a year or two in a larger off-Broadway house?
I think it doesn't exactly matter if it's Broadway or off-Broadway, as long as the venue is sufficiently intimate and they can kind of bring this. Because when you saw the show down at the Minetta Lane, it felt like you were in a dive bar and this story was just kind of like materializing. And I think that if they could recreate that feeling in a Broadway house, and there are several that I think they could of the smaller venues, then yeah, it should be on Broadway for sure.
Well, it is a delight hearing Zachary Stewart, not Zachary Taylor, but Zachary Stewart talking about the theater. Remember, you can read him because he's the chief theater critic of theatermania.com. Do check him out there. And so where are you going to be tomorrow night? Are you watching at home? Are you going to the thing? Or where are you
I'll be on this couch right here behind me watching the Tony Awards, and then I'll bang out a review in the wee small hours of the night for you to read, for normal people to read when they wake up on Monday morning that don't stay up all night on that night.
This is Dave's Gone By. There's no normal people watching.
I should have known.
Thank you, Zachary, so much, and have a wonderful upcoming season. We'll talk to you next year.
A pleasure speaking with you, Dave. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye now. Zachary Stewart, my friends, here in the Daverhood, our very first guest on the Tony broadcast. Now, we've got so many other guests coming. We've got theater critics. We have sound designer Leah Gelpe. We have Philadelphia critic Frank Burd. We also have trivia questions that we're going to offer you. Oh, that's terrible. That's better. Trivia questions that we'll be doing for you. But let's get this also out of the way. We usually shunt him towards the end of the broadcast, but this is perfect timing to bring in someone who's been on this show since our very first episode. He is very, very Jewish, very, very opinionated, and for the past bunch of years, he's done rabbinical reflections. He does them about all sorts of subjects, but on our Tony shows, he talks about the Tony Awards and Broadway, but very specifically what is and isn't Jewish in the Tonys. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only Rabbi Saul Solomon, founder of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And so let me some of the interviews we're having, as you've seen, are live, so I can mistake people's names. Others are already pre-taped. So we've got the Rabbi. It's, of course, Shabbos. He's not coming on with us live, but we pre-taped Rabbi Saul. So let me share my screen with you and bring up the one, the only, the Jewish Rabbi Saul Solomon with his rabbinical reflection for Tony time. And I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Shalom, damn it! This is Rabbi Saul Solomon with a rabbinical reflection for June 16th, Tony Night, 2024. Oh, my friends, the time has come, as it does every year, except the year of the pandemic, to celebrate and honor excellence in the Broadway theater. The Tonys are named for Antoinette Tony Perry, an actress and early female stage director who founded the American Theater Wing, which brought shows to our servicemen in World War II. In 1947, Tony Perry and producer Brock Pemberton cooked up the idea of giving out prizes at the end of the season. Here we are, 77 events later, and the Tonys are a ritual, a commercial for Broadway, and an excuse to complain when musical numbers are all sounding the same, or a performer we love gets egregiously overlooked. For me, the Tonys are also a time to remember, with pride, just how crucial Jewish people were in creating Broadway and how they are still, even in this age of trannies and Sudanis and Kardashian fannies, a theatrical force to be reckoned with. For example, Mary Jane may be the most goyish name for a character ever, but Mary Jane, the Tony-nominated play, is by Amy Herzog. She's a half-Jewish woman on her mother's side and comes from a long line of Marxist, far-left socialist, and other politically wrong-headed but super Jewish beliefs. Speaking of 50-50 Jewesses, Paula Vogel is back on the Tony roster with Mother Play about a mama who smokes and drinks gin. Okay, not Jewish, but we don't want her to be. Plus, last decade, Vogel wrote Indecent, that lovely play about Yiddish theater and lesbians, two subjects I can't think about without reaching for a box of tissues, albeit for different reasons. Now, another Tony-nominated playwright, David Ajmi, is American Syrian. Syrian Jewish! Ajmi's play Stereophonic, about a rock band in crisis, looks to be the one to beat for the Tony statuette. The competition is Jaja's African Hair Braiding by Schwarzer Schickse playwright Jocelyn Bio. Hey, Jews can't hog every nomination. And also a new play by Joshua Harmon, who wrote a comedy years ago called Bad Jews. Well, Harmon's Prayer for the French Republic is a 3-hour Jew fest, a heartfelt exploration of why Jews never feel safe anywhere for very long. If you can believe it, the play was written 2 years before the latest cataclysm and before every putz walking a college campus turned into a billboard for Hamas. One of the show's characters is a progressive Jewish chick who rails against Israel because she doesn't understand that without Israel, Holocaust 2 is just a sequel waiting to happen. For making that case alone, Joshua Harmon deserves an award, not from the Tonys, but from the B'nai B'rith. But before we get too serious, let's find some other Yids in the Tony tally. Songwriter Shayna Taub, the Shayna Madel, who wrote the musical Suffs, has said that the Jewish idea of tikkun olam, repairing the world, is a vital part of her ideology. Half-Jewish Liev Schreiber just played Anne Frank's father in a TV miniseries, and Michael Stuhlbarg, raised as a Reformed Jew, was the rabbinically cursed Larry Gopnik in the Coen brothers film A Serious Man. Now, this does bring us to actress Quincy Tyler Bernstein. She's black, and I have no idea if... However, both her parents were lawyers, and she went to Brown University, so even if Bernstein is not a Bernstein, she's fine. The same goes for special Tony winner Abe Jacob, a legendary sound designer who's probably Jewish, but I can't prove it, and Alex Edelman, whose one-man show Just for Us brings us back to, you got it, anti-Semitism as an American pastime. Edelman, raised Orthodox, talks about assimilating and wanting to be like everyone else, but still feeling unsure how he fits in. He also recounts attending a meeting of neo-Nazis just to study their mindset. Actually, I could have saved him a trip. Just go to your nearest university student government and watch them vote on divestment. But mazel tov to Alex Edelman, featuring actress nominee Shoshana Bean, featuring actor Steven Skybell, whose last role was a Yiddish Tevye, and let's not forget half-Jewish Daniel Radcliffe. Yes, Harry Potter's magic wand is circumcised. Not surprisingly, we see many landslate in the Best Musical Revival category. Remember when all musicals were Jewish, even when they weren't? Anywho, there's Cabaret, Gutenberg the Musical, Merrily We Roll Along, and The Who's Tommy, all with some Jewish connection. Cabaret covers the rise of Nazi Germany and its effect on Jews and Gentiles alike. Well, not alike, Jews suffered worse. But the score was co-written by John Kander, Jewish and still alive at 97, and Fred Ebb, no longer alive, but Jewish when he was. Gutenberg the Musical was written by two Shagitzes, but the name Gutenberg sounds Jewish, and hey, he printed the Bible, so he gets a pass. Pete Townsend, who wrote the music for Tommy, has always looked Jewish, so thumbs up for that. And how can we leave out the Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Stephen Sondheim, whose Merrily We Roll Along finally became a Broadway smash? That musical shows how youthful idealism corrodes into cynicism, disappointment, and schadenfreude. What could be more Jewish? And so, Chaverim, we await Broadway's big night. The teary-eyed speeches, black actresses thanking the Lord, gay directors thanking their husbands, viewers at home thanking God that Joe Coy isn't hosting. My hope for the Tonys is that anyone wearing a Gaza pin on their dress accidentally sits on it, and that we are spared acceptance speeches that sneak in brainless homilies on ceasefire and two-state solutions and other subjects pampered Broadway snowflakes know less than nothing about. Stick to art. Stick to entertainment. I just wish they'd stop sticking it to consumers by charging $200 for orchestra seats. Go figure how all these socialists don't mind a little free market capitalism when it comes to their paychecks. But I can only get so angry at the theater, which has given me so much nachas over the years. May creativity and beauty always be replenished, and may Broadway, that fabulous invalid, which has survived world wars, assassinations, COVID, and even TikTok, forever go on with the show. This has been a Rabbinical reflection from Rabbi Sal Solomon, Temple Sons of Bitches, in Great Neck, New York. Curtain up! The views expressed by Rabbi Sal Solomon do not necessarily represent those of the program, Total Theater, or the host. 99.9% they sort of do. Anyway, you're watching the Dave's Gone By Facebookio Podcastio Programmio of the stream. It is our 948th episode, and more importantly, it is our 19th annual celebration of all things Broadway, particularly tied in with the fact that the Tony Awards are tomorrow night in Lincoln Center's Koch Theater, and also broadcast first part you can watch on Pluto TV, and then if you have Paramount or CBS television, you can watch it there. But we do have our next guest lined up and waiting in the waiting room to be talking about another Broadway category. Let me let her in while I give the intro to her. So our guest is Carey Purcell. Not only was she a former features editor of Playbill.com, a place about which I know a little bit. She's a member of the Drama Desk and a voter for the Outer Critics Circle as well. And she has written for places like American Theater Magazine, Vanity Fair, Theater Mania, the New York Times, and she's even written a book that we'll talk a little bit about called From Afra Ben to Fun Home, A Cultural History of Feminist Theater, which came out in 2019 and is available from Roman and Littlefield Books. But before all that, she has a category to talk about today on The Tony Show. We welcome, for the first time into the Daverhood, Carey Purcell. Good morning and welcome, Carey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely delighted. And so, yes, we want to talk about your book, but first let's do the Tony, because Tonys are tomorrow. This is the show. So your category, just before we had Zachary Stewart talking about score of a musical. Now you get the other side of it. You get the book, the words, the thing that strings everything together, which is a rather reductive way of putting things. So I'll read the nominees, and then we're off to the races. So for best book of a musical, we've got Christopher Diaz for Hell's Kitchen, Becca Brunstetter for The Notebook, Adam Rapp and Justin Levine combining on The Outsiders, Shayna Taub for Suffs, and Rick Elise, Water for Elephants. So, your thoughts on all of them, and Amy, Carey Purcell.
Okay, Hell's Kitchen, I thought the book was the weakest part of the show. I thought that the show was elevated by this fantastic cast. I can't say enough about the cast. We'd be here until the Tonys begin. But I felt like it was kind of a paint by the numbers bio musical, and I didn't feel a strong connection between the two love interests. It felt like it just suddenly they were in love and we didn't see anything building up to that. And speaking of love interests that I didn't feel connected to, The Notebook. The whole point of that story is we're supposed to really care if these two people end up together. That's why we're there, and that it's a tragedy if they don't end up together. But again, I felt like we were told that they'd fallen in love by the end of one song, but we didn't really see them fall in love. Granted, I am not exactly a romantic comedy. I'm not the target audience for it. I've never thought that The Notebook, the novel, the movie were really love stories with more codependency. But I felt like I was told, oh, these two people are in love. But when did that happen?
Actually, I just want to pop in there. What about, let's say, West Side Story, where two people fall in love in a moment? I think we buy that. How come we don't buy it and say, as you said, The Outs or The Notebook?
To be honest, I've had that reaction too when watching West Side Story, when I've thought, turn off your brain and listen to the beautiful love songs. But the practical part of me is thinking, wait, does he really love her, or is he idealizing her and putting her up on this pedestal that if they didn't die in that tragic, terrible way, she'd probably fall off of at some point?
Because he was already madly in love with this other girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dumps her, and he's like, oh, I found the next. Yeah, they'd probably be divorced in 3 years, have the Capulets, and anyway, please continue, Carey Purcell.
Speaking of West Side Story, that gives me a great transition into The Outsiders, also a story about social groups, violence, tragedy. I felt much more invested in that one than the previous two I've mentioned, but it felt kind of cramped. There was so much going on, and these, I thought, really great songs and stunning choreography that even though it was a full 2.5-hour musical, I felt like it could have been longer, and I wouldn't have been shifting in my seat thinking my back hurts, because there was just so much to explore with this large cast of characters. And also, that's a story that a lot of us can relate to. A lot of us in theater have felt like outsiders throughout our lives. And when you think about economic disparities and tragedies that result from that, that kind of speaks to today's audience. And then
that one a lot, but I'm sensing there's one you liked even more, or you're building to your. So yeah.
That's my crescendo is slowly building. Water for Elephants. I liked that Rick Ellis trusted the audience. They didn't have to explain everything to us. It left things to our imaginations, like literally with puppets on stage representing actual animals, but also with the storytelling. We didn't need to be told these two were falling in love. We could see it, and that trusting the audience is something that I think can feel very risky to writers, but I felt like he really trusted us to go on the ride, to go along with this story and get invested in these characters. But because that show had so many other great elements with the choreography, the acrobatics, I feel like the book got a little overshadowed. But then again, when you go to the circus, you're there for the spectacle. And frankly, I was in the audience kind of worried about the cast. Like, what if one of them falls? I mean, it was stunning acrobatics by that cast. My gosh, I felt like I had to go to the gym straight after seeing that show.
So, but all right, so you're ready for the apex, the crescendo, the climax, if you will, which leaves us with
Suffs. I thought that it was the best book by far. There's so much I loved about that show, and given the topic of my own book, of course, the topic appealed to me, but also I felt like everyone in that stage was a person, not a stock character, not someone who fills in the blanks and represents this subject or this conflict or this demographic.
Could you actually tell us what Suffs is about? Because we haven't even really discussed any of the shows here. So what is Suffs?
It's about the suffragist movement, and it is not a Hamilton Light review of women's history, as it was described in one article that I have opinions about. It is about starting in 1913, the women's movement people have already been working for a long time for women's votes. And it presents kind of the newer group of women working and the conflict that they face with the older group who has been working for a while. And it presents the inevitable conflicts of politics that also we can see today of, do we hold out for the perfect ideal situation, or do we sacrifice certain very important things for the overall cause, and then we will keep working. Excuse me for just one moment. Summer cold. One trap that I love that it avoided was, I feel like so often with stories about women activists, they're either presented as only one characteristic. This woman cares about politics. This woman works too much. This woman is a wife and mother and is needed at home. And also it didn't sanctify the women. Often women are presented, historical characters are presented as ideals rather than actual people with flaws. And all of these people felt so richly drawn, so deeply characterized. They all had songs that deepened their characters. And the book worked very harmoniously with the score. It didn't feel like, oh, they had to shoehorn that song in to cover this topic, or, oh, they're talking about this, I know what's coming next. It just felt like an overall smooth, cohesive work of art that complemented each other, but also were outstanding in their own elements.
Are there any musicals that could have been in this category where you would have removed one of the actual nominees and replaced it, or are you pretty good with these?
I was good with the category. I felt like I felt like they were all deserving. Some I thought a little more deserving than others, but
Yeah.
all deserving.
Now, speaking of deserving, people deserve to read your book. So could you, after you finish, oh, I'm sorry about your cold. Could you tell us about your book, From Afra Ben, who was this early woman playwright, to Fun Home, which was a musical from, I guess it's almost 10 years old now, a cultural history of feminist theater. How would you even define feminist theater?
Oh gosh, people have been asking me that since before I even wrote the book, and I feel like the answer still is evolving. I think that it's theater that addresses issues relating to female or female identifying people, and also work that features work by female and female identifying people. That it lets the people who are written or being written or sung about or performed speak for themselves. That Fun Home was the first musical written solely by women to win Best Musical Tony, and that was in 2015. It took that long. It shouldn't have taken that long, and it shouldn't be that long again before another work that is written solely by female or female identifying people wins Best Musical. So let's let these people write and tell their own stories. Let's not have an established, safe, well-known person tell the story. Let's have these people tell the stories themselves.
Now, can I ask you, your book is a couple of years old. Do you
Yes.
see a volume 2 or a reprint where you take, because we're going to be talking to another critic who is delighted and thrilled that in a category that used to have no women in it, I believe it's director of a musical.
Director, yeah.
This year, 4 out of the 5 nominees are women. So do you see yourself maybe in another year or 2 or 3 updating your book with an extra chapter or something?
I would love to do that if the opportunity arose. A lot of changes have already happened since the book was published. It actually just came out in paperback about a week ago. But I've been really happy with some of the changes I've seen, and I hope that more changes and more evolution will continue. I think a lot of work has come from the reckoning that this industry faced during the tragedy of the COVID shutdown. And I hope that people keep thinking and keep forming groups and keep having conversations that will continue to improve this industry in terms of representation.
Now, can I ask you one more question? I didn't prep you on this, but I'm going to throw it at you.
Oh,
Do you have a favorite all-time play?
Heidi Chronicles.
Speaking of feminist, do you have a whole chapter on that in your book, or at least on Wendy Wasserstein, I would assume? But yeah,
I think it's a whole chapter. There's definitely a lot devoted to that play. I think that play was groundbreaking and timely, and sadly timeless too. I remember when the most recent revival had just begun performances, a male colleague of mine was saying that he thought Heidi seemed like she was always on the edge of everything that was happening in the play rather than being a part of it. And I said, yeah, that's the point. Because she doesn't fit these categories of wife and mother, or the corporate role, or the hippie out in the country role. She felt like she was on the outskirts because the role a woman was supposed to play at that time was evolving, and she didn't know where she fit in yet. And I thought Elizabeth Moss beautifully captured that in her performance. And I think that what Wendy wrote is still so applicable. And I was heartbroken when that show closed early. I saw it 3 times during its run.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Carey Purcell, this is the first time we're seeing you in the Daverhood. I certainly hope that you will come back for our Tony shows and other reasons as well. We want to remind people that people can get the paperback copy now of your book, From Opera Ben to Fun Home, A Cultural History of Feminist Theater. Is it still Roman and Littlefield are the publishers of the paperback? And let me ask you, where can people read your current theater reviews?
Everything that I write is on my website, careypurcell.com. If it's published somewhere else, I also include a link to it on that site. You've listed the places I contribute to the most, so that's you can see it there. I'm on Instagram at Carey Purcell Writer, on Facebook, Carey Purcell Author. I am not on X or Twitter. Those are my 2 main ones. But if you go to my site, you can sign up for an email alert, and it will email you when a story is published on the site, and never any other time. You will not be sent surveys. You will not be sent advertisements. You'll just get an email that says the latest from careypurcell.com.
There's no Purcell spam. And by the way, it's Carey, C-A-R-E-Y,
yes.
Purcell with 2 L's, P-U-R-C-E-L-L, careypurcell.com. Carey Purcell, the person, thank you so much for being with us on this Saturday morning.
This was lovely. Thank you so much.
You betcha. Bye-bye now. Thank you. On our Broadway special, ladies and gentlemen, yes, this is just, I love doing this every single year, to have experts talk about something that they're both incredibly knowledgeable about, but also passionate about and love discussing and sharing. That's what this program is all about, and certainly our Tony specials. So we have another guest in the Daverhood. This is someone who, kind of like Rabbi Saul Solomon, is not available or is not able to be with us live on Saturday morning because of religious obligations, but he's a wonderful friend and has been for many, many years. He's also the longtime host / co-host, because he's had a couple of different co-hosts at this point, of 2 on the Aisle, a theater review program that you can watch on Manhattan Neighborhood Network and YouTube. But anyway, Charlie Gross, beloved Charlie Gross, he is got a category that he wants to talk about, featured actress in a musical. So once again, I've got to share the old screenerino. I don't know why I said screenerino, that sounded really dumb. And then Charles Gross, let's load him up and make him full screen. Take it away, Charlie. And on our special Broadway Tony show here on Dave's Gone By, an old friend of my own and also of the program, Charlie Gross. Charlie is the co-host of 2 on the Aisle, which you can watch on YouTube and also Manhattan Neighborhood Network. He is also an actor and writer. In fact, his one-man show, which is called...
That is How I Found an Affordable Apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan Without Really Trying.
And he performed that at the United Solo Festival back in 2019 and may be bringing it back in the months ahead again. So Charlie, ordinarily, I'd start talking immediately about the Tony nominees and categories, but let's talk Drama Desk real quick, because you went to the Drama Desk Awards this past week.
I did, and I had a wonderful time. Sutton Foster hosted it, and she performed, which was great. And we had Kelly O'Hara, who won a Drama Desk for Days of Wine and Roses, and we had Laura Benatti, among others.
Yeah. So what was your absolute favorite moment of the whole Drama Desk Awards experience? Yeah.
Ooh. It really went well. I liked that the speeches weren't too long. I liked the opening number. They put a desk on the stage, not a very spectacular desk, to be honest, and they managed to incorporate it into most of the musicals and some of the plays that we had seen this season. I thought it was a very clever opening number, and I really enjoyed that part.
Well, opening numbers are important. It's become the signature thing of the Tony Awards now, ever since really the Neil Patrick Harris days of starting with a really witty, funny number, and that keys the whole thing. But let's please.
I think that's with any award show these days. You do have to have a good beginning to keep.
Well, the Oscars almost became a joke because so many of the opening numbers were too loud or too bad or ridiculous. But the Tonys said, no, we can make them really good. And now
they certainly did.
Yeah. So, Charlie, let's get to the category that I've asked you to cover for this year's Tony Awards. It's Best Performance by Actress in a Featured Role in a Musical. I'll read them out, and then you can extemporize as you wish. Shoshana Bean in Hell's Kitchen, Amber Iman in The Pizca, Nikki M. James in Suffs, Leslie Rodriguez-Kritzer in Monty Python's Spamalot, Keisha Lewis in Hell's Kitchen, Lindsay Mendez, Merrily We Roll Along, and Bebe Neuwirth in Cabaret. Charlie, your thoughts on the category?
Well, talk about an embarrassment of riches. You really have some serious talent here. I am going to eliminate Amber Iman in Lempica or Lempica. I'm not quite sure how they're pronounced. She was good, but again, this is a very, very talented group. I was surprised that Natalie Joy Johnson, who's also in that musical, was not nominated. Now, let us go to Bebe Neuwirth, Cabaret. Now, she is in a very interesting position because this show has been very misdirected. And consequently, the story that we normally see out front, Sally and Cliff and the MC, kind of tanks. So the story of Neuwirth's character, and wasn't it just yesterday that she was in Chicago? She's right there. She plays, an aging landlady, and she is in love with one of her tenants, a Jewish grocer. And this is right of the dawn in Germany in the 1930s. Wasn't a good time to be Jewish back then.
Is it ever? But okay, fine, yeah.
And on any occasion, this is a very sad, very strong story. But here in this production, it takes front and center, and so does Bebe Neuwirth's performance.
So do you think that would be her third Tony? Because she has a Tony for Chicago, and she'll also for Sweet Charity in Featured Actress. Do you think this will be number 3 or not?
I don't think so.
Aha.
Why? Well, let me tell you about some of our other contenders. You have, Nikki M. James, Suffs. Again, this is like Amber Iman, good performance, but they were better. But let me go to the lady who I would love to see win the award, but I am fairly certain she will not, and that is Leslie Rodriguez-Kritzer. I have to tell you, this production of Monty Python's Spamalot was fabulous. I think every bit as good as the original, and in this production, I think even though you had a very strong lead for King Arthur, the supporting actors really were the ones to shine, and none more so than Leslie as the Lady of the Lake. Now, this is a character referred to but never seen in the movie, but here she has a substantial role. And it's hilarious, and it's fabulous, and she should win. But why won't she? Number one, the show closed. And if your show has closed, that is several strikes against you with the Tony Awards. Number two, it's a comic performance going up against all these dramatic performances. And even though that makes her a standout, comedy tends to be overlooked, which is sad. And I would love to see comedy win this year, but I don't think that will happen. So let's get down to what I consider the strong contenders. This is Lindsay Mendez, Merrily We Roll Along. And the thing is, I liked her performance. I felt, though, that the positioning of her character, Mary, was wrong because it put Mary front and center at the expense of Charlie. And to me, Merrily We Roll Along has always been the relationship between Frank Shepard, the composer, who loses his ideals, and his lyricist, Charlie Pringus, who keeps his. And Mary it's like Frank, Charlie, and then there's Mary. This production, it's Frank, Mary, and then there's Charlie. So it's a very different interpretation. It seems to be one that everybody loves, and it's the one that brought Merrily back to Broadway. And for that reason, she's got a good shot. But we have a brand new show on Broadway, and I never thought a show like this could be so amazing. This is Hell's Kitchen, a jukebox musical with one of the most amazing stories I have seen in a musical in quite some time. This is a young woman living in Hell's Kitchen in an artist apartment, housing for the arts on 42nd Street, and her coming of age, her beginnings as an artist, the people in her life, and how the characters are drawn. And every time you think you know where this story is going, they throw you another curve, and it's fabulous. And the music just fits in so beautifully, even though I don't think most of it is original. And this is actually my choice for Best Musical, even though I know we're not doing that category. So you have two actresses from this show. Shoshana Bean as her mother, and Keisha Lewis as her mentor and music teacher. Now, Keisha Lewis may have just gotten a boost from the drama desk because she won it last night. She won in this very category last night, but I'm kind of leaning to Shoshana Bean, who gave just such an amazing performance. And I'm thinking, you know what? All the acclaim that she had hoped to get for Funny Girl, I think she should be getting for this role.
And she did get a Tony nomination for Mr. Saturday Night. She was really good in that, but that was pretty much as soon as it closed. So, all right. Now, yeah. So, Charlie, you did also mention that your favorite musical, Broadway musical of the year was Hell's Kitchen. We just have time for me to ask you, what are one or two of your other all favorite of the year shows, whether on or off Broadway? Like, what did you love this year?
I really enjoyed the revival off Broadway of I Can Get It For You wholesale. I said, even if you have to pay retail, see this show, that's closed. I was shocked. My award for the most egregiously overlooked show this year has to go to Harmony. This was the show that Barry Manilow strove for decades to get on. He finally got it. It deserved a much longer run. And Chip Zien giving the performance of his lifetime, and it's pretty impressive given his track record on stage as an actor, was not nominated for best actor in a musical. I was very surprised about that. I'm going to give you one more that you may be very surprised to hear. Back to the Future. I thought
you love that one, right? Yeah.
I thought I was not happy with the score, although you have numbers, like Johnny B. Good and Power of Love mixed in. And there are some nice numbers, but I love the staging. I love the book, and I liked. And it's a great story.
Well, yeah.
Even if at the end, when the car flies, it doesn't fly anywhere nearly as well as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And
it's not like the chandelier and Phantom coming at the audience or something like that. But cool. Now, Charlie, again, please tell us where we can watch you and our mutual friend Leslie Hoban Blake doing Two on the Aisle.
Well, the best, probably the place for most people would be on YouTube. You can just type in Charles Gross, Two on the Aisle, or Leslie Hoban Blake if you prefer, and you will see our latest show. Please subscribe. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Right. You can also see us on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, where we have one of the longest running shows on that network. And David, of course, you joined us many times in the studio for that. In Manhattan, we're on every other Thursday, 10 o'clock. Check your cable system for details. But you can also, if you don't live in Manhattan, and I'm told that there are quite a few people who don't, you could www.MNMaryNancy.org, and you can see
Mary Nancy.
I'm sorry. Mary Nancy, yes.
.org.
Mary Jane is also a show you should see. But speaking of Marys, MaryNancyNancy.org, and you can see us there, and you can see all the other wonderful shows that are broadcast on the 4 channels that Manhattan Neighborhood Network has in Manhattan.
The very fact that public access exists is a wonderful thing that you can see people like Leslie and Charlie doing for theater what Siskel and Ebert used to do. for film. I think it's a wonderful thing, and you guys, please, Charlie, keep that going. What is it, almost 30 years now? How long is it?
I think it's a little over 30 years. Jeff Goodman and Sissel and Ebert were actually our inspiration. And Jeff Goodman and I, he was my original co-host. We used to meet in the theater. We were both print journalists at the time, and we discussed the shows that we had seen. And I said, we should do what Sissel and Ebert are doing. And then finally, we talked about it for several years. And then finally, you know what, Jeff, we're going to do this. And we shot our first 2 episodes in Staten Island, of all places. I was directing a television program there at the time. Then we moved it to Englewood, New Jersey for a year. And then finally, M&M opened its first studio in Manhattan, and we have been there ever since.
Yay. And Charlie has been with Dave's Gone By for many, many years, for many, many Tony shows, and we would love to get him on sometimes on our Saturday mornings, but little Shabbos.
All right. Yeah.
So I do wish you a most happy Shavuot, Charlie Gross.
Thank you. That's when is this airing?
Well, this is Saturday morning. That's why.
Okay, so it'll be over, but even so, it's actually starting in another hour over here.
Well, love to your family, love to you, Charlie, and thank you for being in the Daverhood on our
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Charles Gross in the Daverhood, ladies and gentlemen. I have such wonderful friends and such smart friends and cultural and passionate friends. It's so great to do our 19th annual Broadway special here on Dave's Gone By. It's technically our 948th episode of the program. If you want to find out more about the show, please go to my archive site, davesgoneby.com, because you can watch last year's Tony show and the year before and the other 17, 18, 19 that we've done, plus all the other episodes of this program that we've been doing since 2002. davesgoneby.com. We also have a page or shall we say a hub on archive.org, archive.org. It's the same stuff. It's the interviews as well as all the episodes of Dave's Gone By that you can watch and listen to. We also put the audio of our archives at castbox.fm, castbox.fm. That's if you want to listen to podcasts. If it's just audio and you're on the go, that's a great place to go. And we have a YouTube channel, and so on, and so on, and so on, and the Facebook page. But the main place to find us is davesgoneby.com. So if you know people who would love this show but they're not watching now, they can't watch the live thing on Facebook this morning, that's okay, because by tonight we'll have this episode loaded up on Dave's Gone By that you can watch anytime. davesgoneby.com. Okay, it is just about 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, and we're actually perfectly on time. That is rare, and we tend to get rather shapeless towards the last third of the show. But so far, we're keeping on track. And as a matter of fact, we have another interview. In fact, the person that Charlie and I were just talking about, Leslie Hoban Blake. Well, we taped her, I think it was yesterday or the day before, to talk about her category. She has direction of a musical because Leslie was an actress many years ago. She also directs occasionally and has directed for small theater companies for many years. Plus, she is a theater critic who co-hosts Two on the Aisle with Charlie. So it really is appropriate that she is taking the category Best Direction of a Musical. So let me share my screen one more time and bring up our great friend who's been on many of our trivia games as well, Leslie Hoban Blake. Here on the Dave's Gone By Broadway special, well, we've got a familiar face in the Daverhood because you've seen her do so many of our trivia quizzes as well as be on numerous Total Theater Tony shows. And she's back with us again. She is the co-producer and co-star of the long-running theater review show Two on the Aisle. She's there with Charlie Gross, who's also on this program, and you can watch the episodes on YouTube and also Manhattan Neighborhood Network. But right now, Leslie Hoban Blake is with us in the Daverhood to talk about a category that's really, really dear to her heart, which is direction of a musical, and particularly this year, she's very excited about that. Why, Les?
Well, I'm very excited about it because they're some of the most fabulous musicals I've seen in years, all in one year. it's like a gift from God at this point. I mean, truly magnificent musicals. Whether it's because of the staging or because of the dancing or because of the sets, but there's something that's really been fantastic this year. And even the ones who are not nominated, they have much to offer. But getting to the ones that are, the other thing that I'm very, very, very excited about is that 4 out of 5 of the directors this year are women. And when I joined stage directors and choreographers many, many years ago, we were hoping for 50-50 in 2020. That was our little slogan. And it didn't happen in 2020. But now, in 2024, it superseded that. 4 out of 5. I don't know what that's not 2020. I don't know what that is. That's not 50-50.
It's like 80-20 or something like that.
80-20. Yes, I like that. That is exactly 80-20. You're exactly right. Okay. Math is never my subject. So as having said that, one of the most popular musicals is Merrily We Roll Along. It's the little engine that could, the little musical that could. It came up from off Broadway. It came up with not a real bunch of stars, although Daniel Radcliffe comes with quite a following, and Jonathan Groff comes with quite a following, and Lindsay Mendez we've seen before, and perhaps has her own following, but it's not star power, so to speak, in the way that some of the other shows are, and yet it's just a favorite, I think, in many ways. So if David can slay, if David can slay Goliath this year, it will be Merrily We Roll Along, and it will be because of Maria Friedman and her choreographer, I guess, Vin Jackson. I don't know that duo really. We know who Maria Friedman is, and all I can say about that is that I liked several other shows better. This may be the best. This may be the touchstone, the missing holy grail that we've been looking for in terms of Merrily We Roll Along, the problem play by Stephen Sondheim. And I did like it very much in that respect. But I like some of these other musicals better, and I have a favorite, and I'll tell you what that is. Okay, moving along. Hell's Kitchen, directed by Michael Bright, whom we adore, and who of course did Rent, as we reminded you before, and his choreographer Camille A. Brown. I have to put them together because without Camille A. Brown, there would be no show. No matter what Michael Bright did without the dancing, it was contemporary and hot and exciting, and just colorful, and made the musical what it was. Someone said that it's a love song to New York, and it is. It really, really is. I mean, I live a block away from Manhattan Plaza, and the play takes place in Manhattan Plaza. I live in Elsington. But Camille A. Brown, who has been doing phenomenal choreography, she came to my attention in. You want to say something, don't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. Sorry. Who came to my attention in For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide, When the Rainbow Ain't Enough. I think that's the right title. Anyway, this last production was hers, and the choreography, quiet and lovely and beautiful. And here it's all over the stage. It's loud and it's noisy. And I brought a 17-year-old, and she cried during this production. Well, the mother-daughter scene cried. The musical form has something for everyone. It really does. And then at the end, it has an anthem to New York. What could be better? How could you not like that show? Okay, I'm going to give my favorite at the end. But,
Sure.
Sus, which I saw off Broadway at the Public Theater, in quite a different version, with quite a different set, which was a very talky, polemical show, because it's about the 14th Amendment and the right to vote for women. And not exactly what let's make a musical. But that's what they did. And the they who did that, of course, is, well, the director on the show is Lee Silverman. And the choreographer is Maite Natalia. I'm sorry, it's the new name to me, Maite Natalia. But Lee Silverman is not a new name. Lee Silverman's been around. Lee Silverman has been nominated before. And I think she's also directed on Broadway before. I don't think this is her first one. But that being said, the changes that were made to the show from off-Broadway to Broadway, phenomenal. It is they put in a rousing, let's give Mother the Vote song. They put in gorgeous settings in the background. They put in just stuff. I mean, costumes and choreography and setting. And so they've made this into a really exciting show. So that even if you can't imagine a show about the 14th Amendment exciting.
No, but that is something that they made such a difference between just transferring off Broadway to Broadway. They blew it up, but without destroying it. They made it better, which is.
But you see, that's the point of moving a show, I think, is because you think there's an audience and you want to make it for the audience that you're bringing it to. And sometimes they take a show from off Broadway and they think, we'll just make it we'll just extend it to the side. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always work. This show gained so much from the time and the expansion. Very, very. And the choreography on the show was really special because it wasn't much to look at before. The choreography was very special. And when a choreographer and a director work together, and I think I've said this, I'm not sure if I said it now or not, but they have to think with one mind about the show. They almost have to be one person. So if one of them isn't there, the other one could do something. They know what they want together. And that's all pre-decided. Some stuff happens when you're working, but it just has to be such a focused vision. So that it's really hard to talk about the director without the choreographer on some shows. That's why I said on Merrily We Roll Along, I don't think it matters that much. But
Yeah,
we're almost
60 or 70 years ago, or 80 years, there would a director would direct the spoken scenes, and then the choreographer would bring on a big dance, and the Martha Graham,
Exactly.
Bob Fosse.
Exactly.
Now everything is choreographed every second, essentially. So
well, it is. But
yeah.
that would have been called stage management once upon a time. That would be moving the play rather than dancing the play. But things have just. But it's a natural evolution. If you think about it, it's really a natural evolution. If you come at it from two different sides, you're in contention as opposed to being focused. Even if you don't mean to be, even if you mean to be on the same page, there's always going to be something about, well, this is what my, and then you're done. The minute you say mine, it's our vision. Anyway, I think it's wonderful. Okay, the next and last, it is the next and last, right?
Well, you haven't said your favorite yet. So
no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I left my favorite for last.
Water for Elephants. Is that
That's my favorite.
Oh, so
that's why I left it.
Outsiders.
I left my best. I left my favorite for last. And Water for Elephants moved me in a way.
But you haven't done the Outsiders yet.
Oh, I asked you about that. Okay. I said, did I forget anything? Okay. The Outsiders. Yes, very interesting. I hated the Outsiders.
Oh.
I hated it. I thought it was filled with toxic masculinity, even though it was directed by a woman. I never read the book. It was written by a little girl. I think she was 15 when she wrote it. I don't think there's any real. I think it's like Born to be Wild on stage. It's just. I know you're disagreeing with me, and
well, I haven't seen it. I don't know. I'm just saying. Yeah.
It's so predictable. It's the cool kids, from Connecticut. They're not Connecticut. They all got the little skirts around the shoulders and the white shoes, and the kids who have the grease in their hair. They're the greasers. And I mean, please, I don't want to see that. And then the fight scenes, which are nothing but highlighted violence. I mean, I was very disturbed. I was disturbed by the show.
So wait, if you were disturbed, is that good direction?
That's not what she was trying to do, I don't think. And by the way, the choreographer were two brothers, the Cooperman brothers, Jeff and Zach, I think. I can't read his name. Anyway, the Cooperman brothers. I don't know who they are. It was in a tableau almost. The lights would suddenly not be there, and then the lights would come up, and there'd be a fight scene like this, with somebody gouging somebody else's eye out, that kind of thing. And then the lights would go down, that kind of stop motion thing. And it was exciting to look at, but it turned my stomach. So I'm in the vocal minority against that show. I really didn't like it for those reasons.
But you loved Water for Elephants, so.
Now we come to my favorite show. Okay, which I was trying to talk about before. Sorry, that's my fault. I love Water for Elephants. I love Water for Elephants. It made me happy. I left the theater feeling good. It made the audience around me. Not even you. When I was a girl, the Ed Sullivan Show. No, we're not the same. In the same generation. When I was a girl, the Ed Sullivan Show every week brought us circus acts. There'd be tumblers. There'd be this. There'd be something else. Nobody today, the younger people today, do not know this. And you have only watched Ed Sullivan in rerun. You don't know about. Okay, so there's no place to really see a circus unless you go to the circus. And if you go to the circus, there are no more wild animals because it's cruel. So, you get to see a horse every now and then. So the fact that with puppetry, they were able to bring, and they being Zanya Tamor, who's a cousin, I believe, of the other Tamor who used puppetry.
She's
the Lion King.
Uli Tamor's niece, FYI.
Her niece. Okay, thank you. Anyway, I think it runs in the blood. I think puppetry must run in the blood. I don't know. It's the new DNA strain. And the choreographers were two people. One was a circus advisor. Her name is, I have to read this, Shauna Carroll, and then the actual choreographer, Jessie Robb. And so they had to work as one. She had to be able to do the circus choreography in connection with the dancing. You couldn't separate all of that. And the circus stuff had to be done in connection with the directing. You could not separate anything that was being done on that stage. You couldn't take them in another room and do it. If everything didn't fit together as you were working, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So the fitting together of that, and every time there was a circus act, even the dumbest one, even the girl climbing up on top of three guys and standing there, even that got a round of applause from the audience. Everybody felt it. Everybody felt it. When I saw it. I don't know about now, but I can. The songs, some of them were quite cute. They were toe tapping. I have, particularly that one about the lion has no teeth. I have been humming that to myself. So I'm going to go back and listen. They sent us discs, and I'm going to try to find a friggin' disc player so I can play the music again. And
I know, right? Nobody has CD players anymore.
I know. My old computer is not working, so I have nothing to play them on. But anyway, I just have to say, I hope I've named everybody.
Yeah,
I have.
Good.
And I don't know that Water for Elephants will win. I probably, the two real contenders probably are Hell's Kitchen and Merrily We Roll Along. And Merrily We Roll Along is the old play, the old friend. And Hell's Kitchen is the new friend. By the way, Alicia Keys' music never sounded better. So it's going to be, I don't know what the makeup of the Tonys is, but I have a feeling that it may very well be an age thing. I don't know. I mean, there are those of us, well, think about it. If they're younger, if there's a younger couple of generations in the Tonys, and I know they were trying to do that, then they may really go for the newer play, which is contemporary and has that. Both of them make you feel good. I mean, when I heard the overture in Merrily We Roll Along, my heart swelled. It's something you don't hear an overture anymore. And I sing these songs I sing all the time. It was his answer to songs aren't hummable, his songs aren't hummable. And they so on. Anyway, I hope I've done what you asked me to do.
Yes, we are humming the praises of Leslie Hoban Blake, who has been co-hosting Two on the Aisle, the theater review show that you guys can watch. What is the YouTube channel that it's on?
It's Charles Gross's YouTube channel, but if you look for Two on the Aisle and put in either my name or Charles Gross's name, you will find it.
Two on the Aisle with Charlie and, of course, our beloved Leslie Hoban Blake. Thank you, Leslie, and happy Tony season to you. Thanks.
Yes, I'm very excited for Sunday. Say hi to Joyce for me. Love her.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Leslie Hoban Blake in the Daverhood on this Saturday morning. And we're just going from guest to guest to guest. I do want to tell you that thank you to the folks from Water for Elephants for sending, as they sent Leslie, like the discs to a lot of us critics and things, and also these wonderful postcards. So all these things you see behind me are from the Broadway show Water for Elephants. So thank you very, very much for you. Gave us a little bit of a design. Now,
how would you say it in Spanish? Agua por
elefantes, no? Agua para los elefantes.
Try to post a picture of an elephant.
Haven't taken, I took one Spanish class in college, and that's where it got me. But where it got me right now, at 10:15 in the morning Eastern Time, is to our next guest in the Daverhood. He's someone very familiar to all of you folks who watch the show regularly because he takes part in our trivia quizzes along with Leslie, but also, more importantly, he's a theater critic for TheaterLife.com, CulturalDaily.com, and my own TotalTheater.com. You can also read his blog, The David Desk, and speaking of desks, he's the former president of the Drama Desk. So first of all, welcome back to the Daverhood, David Sheward. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, David?
I'm great, and you look great. It's so good to see you. I'm sorry we haven't been able to get you on the show the past few weeks, but there's just so much other stuff to do. Speaking of things that you've done, before we get to the Tonys, you did go to the Drama Desk Awards.
Yes, I did.
So, how was it? What were the highlights of the Drama Desks?
Oh, it was fun. It was some of the highlights were the hosts Sutton Foster and Aaron Tveit throwing candy at the audience. The show was 3 hours long. It started at 6 p.m. And there were all these comments about, oh, I'm so hungry, because people didn't think to. I went and got a chicken salad sandwich at a diner beforehand because I knew this thing is going to drag on, and I have no idea what's going to be at. There was an after party, but I didn't know if there would be food or not. So midway in the point of the show, I sat next to these people who had never been there before, who were nominated for unique theatrical experience. They said, "Oh, is there an intermission at this?" I said, "No, it usually keeps going on." And they said, "We know you're hungry." So the hosts came out and they had a big basket of Halloween-sized candy, and they threw it out to the audience. And the people in the audience were yelling, "Give some to me!" And I did get a peanut M&Ms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All these years in the theater, covering the theater for a couple of decades now, writing a book about George C. Scott, as we did as well, and your reward, a bag of M&M peanuts.
Big a bag. At least it was better than the plain, you know? I'm glad I got the peanut.
You did get
I like the peanut M&Ms best.
Now, here's the deal. David Sheward, let's get to the Tony Awards, because I've asked you to cover a category of Tony nominees. I'll read what they are. It's actress in a leading role in a play. And the nominees are Betsy Adam for Prayer for the French Republic, Jessica Lange in Mother Play, Rachel McAdams for Mary Jane, Sarah Paulson, Appropriate, and Amy Ryan in Doubt, a Parable. David Sheward.
Okay. Well, this is a very interesting category. I chose it when you asked which one we'd like to cover. I said this was my preference because it's a very competitive category. We have 3 Oscar nominees, 1 Oscar winner, an Obie winner, and an Emmy winner. I think Sarah Paulson may have. I think she has 2. No, she has 1 Emmy. And so it's very, very competitive. I think it boils down to between Jessica Lange and Sarah Paulson. I think those are the 2 front runners, although all 5 are really give exemplary performances. That's why it's such a hot category. And at the Drama Desk Awards, speaking of which, for reasons too complicated to explain, they gave out 2 awards in leading performance in a play. They eliminated gender last year, and they doubled the number of nominees. And they said, so since we're giving out fewer categories, we'll give the top 2 vote getters in each category will be declared the winners. And in this case, it was the top 2 winners were 2 women. Jessica Lange and Sarah Paulson were the 2 winners. I think that, which I thought was great. I think it's wonderful that more than one person is winning. I think that the winner, that the Tony will go to Sarah Paulson in Appropriate. She did win one of the Drama Desk Awards. She won the Drama League Award, which is like, they only give 1 award for the outstanding performance, musical or comedy, musical or play, on or off Broadway, and she was voted the best performance of anybody this season.
David, can you tell us a little bit about the play Appropriate and who Sarah Paulson is in it?
Sure. Appropriate is, it was presented off Broadway a few years ago, and this is its Broadway debut. And the play is by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, who is a really fascinating African-American playwright. And it's about a white family in going to their grandfather, the father's estate in Arkansas. And it's sort of the premise sounds kind of familiar. All the children of the alienated children, they're all fighting and they're wrestling over the remains of the estate. But what's different about this is they find some photographs in the attic, which are quite disturbing, of Black people being lynched. And then it brings up this whole cauldron of feelings of all of the characters. I won't say too much more about it because it's kind of shocking. And it's sort of a metaphor on the one hand for our country not being able to deal with its racist past. But and it's also a very believable, real family drama. So it has these two things going on at once, and it's really incredibly staged, and it's very funny and very shocking and very dramatic. And Sarah Paulson plays the daughter of the family, who is sort of having all kinds of issues. She has sort of a strange relationship with her son, who's in trouble. Her marriage is no more. She has a very bad relationship with her siblings, and she has this incredible rage, which fuels the performance, which she does quite brilliantly. I'm a Tony voter, and I voted for Jessica Lange in Mother Play, who I think should win. That's why I voted for her. In Mother Play, because her performance is a bit more varied. She plays this character from over the course of several decades and plays more of a range of emotions, whereas Sarah Paulson does it very well, but her range is not as expansive and broad as Jessica Lange's. And I think also Sarah Paulson might win because Jessica Lange already has a Tony for her performance in Long Day's Journey into Night a few years ago. So they may take that into consideration. But I hope that Jessica Lange wins, but I think it's going to be Sarah Paulson.
Now, let me ask you, especially since we're at the drama desk where they took away the gender stuff, but if you were to add 2 or 3 more names to the nominees for a Tony for leading role in a play, let's keep it female then, who, are there any, not snubs, but people like
I don't think there were any real snubs in this category. I'm trying to think if there were any. I don't think there was anybody that was overlooked. I really don't. I can't think of a lead performance in a play on Broadway that really deserved recognition that didn't get recognition. I do think that off Broadway, I can't think of the actress's name. It'll come to me in a couple of minutes, maybe after we're finished. Off Broadway, there was a production of Macbeth, or rather Macbeth parentheses and Undoing at Theater for a New Audience. And that the play was rewritten by Zinnie Harris from Lady Macbeth's point of view, and the actress who played Lady Macbeth was really quite brilliant.
Oh, cool! Now, speaking of quite brilliant things, can you share with us, David Sheward, what 1 or 2 of your other favorite overall shows of the season were, be they off or on Broadway?
I really enjoyed Dead Outlaw, which was off Broadway, and was named Best Musical, by the Drama Desk. It's only the 5th off-Broadway play to win Best Musical from the DDs. And it also won the Outer Critics Circle Award for Off-Broadway Musical and the New York Drama Critics Circle Award. It's very different. It sort of traces what happens to the corpse of a small-time outlaw from the Wild West.
By the way, David, I just want to interrupt for one quick moment.
Sure.
Was her name Miriam Silverman? Was that?
Yeah, no, Miriam Silverman, no, I don't think so.
Oh, all right, with the Macbeth.
Miriam Silverman was in Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window last year.
Oh, okay. It was probably a different. I'm sorry about that. But okay. Please continue about Dead Outlaw.
And it's this brilliant, fascinating story about America's obsession with crime and death, and the outlaw, alienation, and so forth. And it's all these interesting themes, and it's not your typical boy meets girl or outsider overcomes adversity and wins the girl and the dream job and the happy love of everybody by the end of the show, which is your typical, or gets reconciled with their father.
Well, this is your
typical musical stuff. This is very different. It's a corpse, yes.
Now, who else? What's one other show that you really,
I really love Suffs. You may have covered this in some of your other interviews, and I hope it wins Best Musical. I don't know if it will. I voted for it to win Best Musical, Best Book, and Best Score by Shayna Taub, who also plays the lead. So that's a neat trick, which I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is the last one to have done that for Hamilton. I thought it was a brilliant show. It was done off Broadway 2 years ago and kind of got lost in the shuffle because of COVID, and a lot of the performers had to cancel a lot of performances because some of the actresses came down with COVID, and it got kind of lost in the shuffle. and Shayna Taub rewrote it, redid it, and it's much stronger and tighter now on Broadway. And I hope it wins Best Musical. I don't know if it will. It has a lot of competition from Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders.
Cool. And by the way, Leslie Hoban Blake agrees with you. We just had her on, and she was saying how different Sups was from off Broadway to Broadway. They didn't just put it on a bigger stage and make a bigger set. It really transitioned very well.
She redid it.
Now let me just my wife Joyce has given us some options for the Macbeth. Is it Emanuela Cole?
I'm not sure. If you let me just see here. Let me just see.
It's saying she was a lady, but maybe not. Maybe not. Macbeth. Oh, is it the redhead girl?
220.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Nicole Cooper, maybe. Cole was Lady Macduff. Nicole Cooper was Lady Macbeth, supposedly. Here she is. Oh, here, I can show her to you. Is that her? I'm going to put it right up to the screen.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, dear. Thank you. All right, now David Sheward. We just have like one more moment. So where are you going to be tomorrow night, Tony night? Going to watch at home or what? Or
yes, I'm going to watch at home. Oh, that's another thing I was going to bring up. There's this whole controversy right now that because they're now at the David H. Koch Theater at Lincoln Center, which is much smaller than Radio City or wherever they've been in the past, a lot of the traditional theater press has not been given access to the red carpet. I don't know if they're in the inside room or not. And there's a lot of brouhaha about that. So I've been watching at home for the past couple of years because I'm no longer doing that end of it. I'm basically now reviewing shows. Yes, but will be watching at home. I will be watching the pre-show on Pluto starting at 6:30, and the show itself, and I'll be putting out tweets and things on Facebook simultaneously.
Your Facebook page, which is what? It's just
David. Just if you just write in David Sheward, I'll come up. I'm a rare name.
Well, yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else with my name on Facebook.
Nor does anybody else have the David Desk as a blog. And also, don't forget that you can read his reviews at TOTALTHEATER.com, TheaterLife.com, CulturalDaily.com. And I'm not going to let you go before I give you one more question, David Sheward.
Sure.
Is there a show that you're looking forward to the most in the fall or spring coming now?
Oh, goodness. Let me see. What am I looking forward to coming up in the spring? Well, what springs to mind is the Broadway premiere of Floyd Collins, which was off Broadway in the 90s and is finally coming to the Vivian Beaumont stage. There's also a play by Jez Butterworth called The Hills of California, which was in London and got smash reviews, and it sounds really fascinating. It's about four sisters who tried to be a girl group in the 70s in a small British seaside town, and what's happened to them since. And it sounds very interesting. Those are two things I'm really looking forward to.
Well, we are looking forward to, of course, having David Sheward in the Daverhood again and again as the year continues. But boy, oh boy, how delighted we are to have him here as part of our Broadway celebration.
Yeah.
So, David,
I'm wearing my Broadway pajamas, my Playbill pajamas.
Yeah, I know Playbill well. And I know you well, David Sheward. It's such a delight to have
Thank you.
Time. Thank you so much, man. I'm going to ask you to log out because I don't
Okay. Here we go, and here we go.
Thank you, David Sheward. Thank you so much, and thank you, everybody watching. We are about halfway through our 19th annual Broadway Tony Celebration show here on Dave's Gone By. It's our 948th episode of the show, hosted by me, Dave Lefkowitz, with help from my darling and adorable wife. And of course, thank you, all of you who are sharing, who are tweeting and giving thumbs up, and saying nice things on Facebook and our other platforms. Remember that if you miss all or part of the program, it will be archived here on Facebook, as well as davesgoneby.com and our channel on archive.org. Well, we have another very special guest to bring into the Daverhood, someone who's been with us many times and a longtime friend. She is Eva Heinemann. Let me get my notes for her. I should have done that before. I do have them here. So Eva, who is one of the most delightful people you're ever gonna meet, and she has hosted and produced the Broadway and off-Broadway and off-Broadway theater review program called High Drama. Eva is with us. I want to make sure that Eva, can you hear me? And can we? Don't go away! Don't go away,
I'm
Eva
sorry.
Heinemann.
No, I was hoping you'd get me in sooner. I wanted to change my background, but I don't have time to change my background now.
Oh, sorry, but your background looks fine.
Well, no, I was in a Tony Award background.
There we go. Oh, I see. It's fine. It looks great. You look great, Eva. How you doing? How was your year overall in terms of theater?
Okay, I wrote everything down because it's early in the morning. I don't think so well. So you said you wanted me to talk about the season. I want to mention my favorite theater company, New Light Theater Project, that was very busy this year. They had 4 shows: The Greatest Hits down Route 66, Friends with Amenities, This Is Not a Time of Peace, and The Lights Are On. They're each so different from one another, and they never disappoint me. They haven't had a clunker yet. Usually one of my favorite companies or whatever has a clunker, never them. That look out for them.
Sure.
My favorite play this
theater company, yeah.
What?
All right. New Light. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
New Light Theater Project. I mean, I've been in love with them for years. And I mean, they never let me down. They're fabulous. My favorite play this year, without beyond a shadow of doubt, The Ally. It was brilliant. I can't believe it was written before the hostages take over and all the nonsense that's going on right now, because it was very prescient and it really captured all the, feelings that Jews go through with everything that's thrown at us all the time. And you can still see this. It's going on until June 30th. It's called Here Comes the Blueberries at New York Theater Workshop. And it's a photograph album that was sent to the Washington Jewish, Holocaust Museum. And it's about the Auschwitz soldiers, people there enjoying themselves. They're having vacations. They're sad because there's no blueberries while they're killing hundreds and thousands of Jews. And then there's this really good story about foreign correspondence called Breaking the Story. And it mentions Stephen Vincent at the end when they show all the people killed in action. And he was like a neighbor of mine. And I forgot to mention, our family has donated a lot of stuff to that Washington Museum for the Holocaust from our own family, because we had this guy, Hilmer, that was on board the St. Louis. And then some just shows also. I'm trying to talk fast because I know I don't have that much time.
Yeah, I'm also glad to parse all the things you're saying, but yeah. But okay, let's get to the category though, because I want to have enough time so that we can talk very specifically about the category that you have chosen to talk about, a big one, lead actor in a Broadway musical, and the nominees are Brody Grant for The Outsiders, Jonathan Groff in Merrily We Roll Along, Dorian Harewood in The Notebook, Brian Darcy James for Days of Wine and Roses, and Eddie Redmayne, who's in Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club. So, Eva Heinemann, your thoughts on lead actor?
Okay. Well, first of all, Brian Darcy James, I adore him. He's fabulous. He's great. But Days of Wine and Roses was a horrible musical. And I love Adam Guttell. A Light in the Piazza is one of my favorite scores of all time. This was boring. The only thing going for it was that Brian Darcy James and Kelly O'Hara have beautiful singing voices. That's not enough to get a Tony Award. I mean, they've done brilliant things in the past. They'll do brilliant things in the future. He doesn't belong here. Dorian Harewood in The Notebook. Oh my God, that show. What's her name? Michelson. Her music is, first note, you're crying. I mean, they sell tissue boxes in the lobby for good reason. And he was just so good as the older guy, looking after his Alzheimer wife. He was wonderful. And Brody Grant, I mean, he got a Theater World Award because he was just amazing in The Outsiders. I mean, for a Broadway debut, it's a sort of a West Side Stories kind of thing. Eddie Redmayne was just bizarre in Cabaret. I mean, it had some brilliant moments and some terrible moments, badly directed. I mean, it's very good, but no. There's only one person that deserves this, that better get it. And like Daniel Radcliffe said, if he doesn't get it, I'm going to burn down the theater. Jonathan Groff and Merrily We Roll Along was the most brilliant performance I have ever seen of all time. Because I went back to see it again. I paid full price. I paid basically $500 so Alfie and I could go see this. That's how much I wanted to see it. because I saw it off Broadway, and I had my binoculars because I really wanted to see his expressions. In the beginning, you could just see his wistful, like, what have I done with my life? And he's all hardened and dead-eyed. And then you see him in the beginning, and his eyes are actually glistening. They're glistening with the youth and the innocence. I mean, just expressions were incredible. I'm like, oh my God, it's the most amazing performance. I mean, it's like Edward Duran in Dead Outlaw, where he has to play dead with his eyes open for like half an hour. He's just there, not blinking, dead. I mean, there's some performances that are just so remarkable because there are no words. It's all in the eyes and expression, or
Now,
lack of in the case of a dead person.
so do you think Groff will win? I know he's obviously your choice. Do you think he's the Tony's choice, or yeah?
I think so, because I can't imagine anyone not, because Merrily We Roll Along is definitely going to get Best Revival, because they've taken this show that has just been that we love, but it has been so maligned because it's just a terrible story, and they fixed it, and somehow Maria Friedman. I mean, it's just one of the best productions of Merrily, and I've seen about 3 or 4 of them. And I also discovered something interesting about Merrily, because every time you see a show that you've seen a lot of, you get something new out of it. And you know Follies, right?
Yeah, I do.
The,
Yeah.
Sometimes Follies. Think of Ben singing "The Road You Never Take Never Comes to Mind," does it? He's Ben. Frank is Ben.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. Well, yeah.
I mean, and then he's got the whole live, love, laugh. Oh, look how happy I am. I'm successful, blah, blah, blah. And then he falls apart and has a nervous breakdown.
Well, that.
He really, oh my God, he's like developed the Ben character in Merrily We Roll Along. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Now, let me ask Eva Heinemann, because it's cool. We have gotten through the category. Let me then go back to some more of the off, because very few of our critics venture off Broadway. You do. So what are some other off shows that you really, really like this year, off theater companies that you're really into?
Oh, well, New Light is an off Broadway theater company. So they never get nominated for anything. Wait, I'm sorry. I keep playing around with things and picking wrong things because I have to write, like I say. Let's see. Well, Mary Gets Hers at Playwrights Realm. It was this bizarre medieval story. And Russian Troll Room. I saw that during the COVID, where it was online, and now it was on stage, and it worked both ways. And I just wanted to see that Diane Wiest was back in Scene Partners, Scene something. So yeah, but also I want to talk about some snubs at the Tonys.
Oh yes, please.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That was another one of your questions. Excuse me, what happened to How to Dance in Ohio? That was such a good production. And I'm sorry, but I loved Heart of Rock and Roll. It was a fun story. And the Wiz, I mean, the choreography was incredible. I mean, there were some good elements in the Wiz. I don't know why they were just nothing, just shocking.
Because that does happen with Tony voters and award voters in general. They'll love a show, and then they'll nominate a whole bunch of things from a show that they really love, and then a show that they're not into at all, even if there are elements that should be recognized, they'll sometimes be like, I forgot about the Wiz, I forgot about Heart of Rock and Roll, and they won't even give anything, which is not necessarily fair.
But the Wiz and Heart of Rock and Roll were right there, not to be forgotten, because they opened during the flood of.
In other words, people just, if they shrugged at it, even walking in to the Huey Lewis and the News-based musical Heart of Rock and Roll, they kind of went, oh, jukebox musical, expecting that. It's kind of what they got. And then they walked away saying, okay, that's not the Tony Award worthy, but you're feeling like, hey, there are elements of these shows that you liked that should have been recognized.
Yeah. Oh, and also there was a theme this year for theater. I mean, across the boards, off Broadway, and Broadway. It was the poor guy versus the rich guy.
Interesting. Some other examples.
Oh, look at The Outsiders. You have the poor working class. You got the Socs and the whatever they were called. I don't know The Outsider. I never saw the movie. I never saw the book, so it was all new to me. I mean, I can't think off the top of my, but it's just like, if you go back and look at everything. Oh, the Notebook. She wants her daughter to marry a doctor, a lawyer, not this poor working schlub.
And even Maryland has a class structure, because essentially one person gets really, really famous and well known, and the others are kind of just laboring along. So there's class in Merrily too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patriots, you have the autocratic guy and Putin, the poor guy who turns out to be a friggin' nightmare. I mean, Patriots is fascinating. But if you go back and think about every single thing you've seen, you'll see it's all poor versus rich.
Well, we have an embarrassment of riches, ladies and gentlemen, on our Broadway special with people like Eva Heinemann. Eva, please tell us where we can watch High! Drama!
Oh, on YouTube, and go to Eva Heinemann High Drama, because otherwise you'll get me as an anime. I'm Eva Heinemann the monster, apparently, which cracks me up. And also, I'm on I'm still on Twitter, although they call it X, but I still call it Twitter, on 6_2_review. And then on Facebook, it's www.facebook.com/highdramas, HIDRAMAS. And of course, on public access every other week on all those stations.
Well, it is dramatically exciting always to talk to Eva Heinemann. Eva, I want to wish you a very, very happy season to come, and we'll have you back in the Daverhood soon. I'll ask you to, I don't know if I can yes, I can. So have a great one, and hey, good Shabbos to you.
Yes, and you too, bye. Always fun.
Oh, Eva Heinemann in the Daverhood, ladies and gentlemen, on our special Tony program. Let's see, our other guest is quite early. I want to see if I can text him it's Brian Scott Lipton, who is supposed to join us at 11. I'd be happy to bring him in early, but I don't want to bring him in before he's ready. So I do want to just give him a.
He sent you a message on Facebook.
Oh, did he? What?
What's his name?
Brian Scott Lipton.
I saw it. Okay.
Or that's his.
I'm slow, David.
Sure. So I'm ready if he is. Otherwise, we have another taped interview to load in. Plus, we have trivia. So much more fun on the Dave's Gone By special. I just don't see where I can chat into the waiting room.
Right here, you could just message him on Facebook.
I'm going to do that right this second. Are you?
And your first guest said he came in as another name, and I said thank you for being such a great first guest. Like, no worries. He said he entered the waiting room with another name.
Oh, it's
first guest.
I saw
his husband's name. He said, please let me in, and I didn't see it.
But no, it's been going really, really great. So I'm going to vamp a little bit.
You could bring him in, and then if he's not ready, put him back out.
Well, if he's in his underwear, I don't want to, or if I'm in my underwear, especially. So let's just see if he.
You can mute the video when you bring him in.
Oh, all right. Well, let's try it. Let's see if we can do.
Mute video, stop video for him.
Let's see. I'm gonna admit, and then. But if I stop my video. Oh, let's see.
No, for him.
It's gonna be on the right side, then up where he is.
When he enters, you can once he enters and comes in, you can fix the video.
Cool. Camera's off. That's good. Camera's off.
What I wanted.
Yeah, mic is off. By the way, it's Brian Scott Lipton. I'm going to tell you a bit about him. He is, he writes mainly for citytour.com. CITI tour.com. It's sort of like Citibank, CITI, citytour.com. He is also a member of a pretty new theater critics organization called Galeka, which is a society of theater critics who are LGBTQ plus and all that. Plus, he's a member of the Outer Critics Circle and has been for quite a few years. I guess he might end up joining us a little bit. Oh, no, yes. We're coming in.
Sorry about that.
No. I didn't know whether to bring you in at 11 when we had scheduled, but I didn't want to make you wait.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, please. And welcome, Brian Scott Lipton, to the Daverhood.
Thank you, Dave.
Here's the deal. First of all, we'll do the category. That's the main thing. We have all our critics coming on talking about the different categories nominated for Tony Awards this season. So you picked a big one, Revival of a Musical. And the category, the nominees are Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, Gutenberg, The Musical, Merrily We Roll Along, The Who's Tommy, Brian Scott Lipton. Your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly an interesting category, but I don't think this is much of a race. As you might know, and I know didn't come up in the intro, I do a lot of Tony predictions for goldderby.com. I'm sort of the reigning champ most of the time. And we get to do these, of all the categories, there are two you can do as what they call sure bets, which are worth 500 points. I don't really understand the point system, but this category is my sure bet. And it's for Merrily We Roll Along. It's a twofold thing. I mean, first of all, the other three nominees that you mentioned, The Wiz, Gutenberg, are both entertaining, but they're really pretty slight. They're not really in that great Tony Best of category. Cabaret is this very provocative reimagining of this musical that, of course, has been revived twice before, three times before on Broadway. It's been a real kind of love it or hate it experience, at least in the critical community. And I think even with viewers, non-critic people I've talked to, some people found it fascinating. Some people just found it almost unwatchable. But
Brian, let me ask you, how did you feel about this quote unquote controversial reimagining of Cabaret?
Not great. I didn't really understand. It's a British production from a director named Rebecca Frecknell. And I don't really understand what her concept was, what she was trying to show us in her new version. I think Eddie Redmayne is an extraordinarily talented actor, but I don't understand his perception of the MC. It's very different than Joel Grey's or Alan Cummings. It's very cold. And Gail Rankin, who I also think is very talented, is playing Sally Bowles as sort of somewhere between hysterical and overly egotistical. There's not enough vulnerability there. So I didn't think it was great. Merrily, on the other hand, which I was blessed to see 4 times, twice off Broadway and twice on Broadway, is really nothing short of perfection. And nobody is more shocked at saying that than me, because although I did not see the original quote unquote flop 1981 production, I've seen about 4 revivals afterwards. And this show has never worked, despite it being one of Stephen Sondheim's best scores and most memorable. But it's booked by George Firth, based on a play by Kaufman and Hart, which goes backwards chronologically. And therefore, when you first meet our 3 main characters, they're in their 40s. They're horrible, bitter, really despicable people. And in every other production, you hate them so much from the opening scene or scenes that you never care really to sit through the next 2.5 hours and find out how they got there. From here and see how they were really optimistic, smart young people. And the genius of Maria Friedman's production, and of course the casting of Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, and Lindsay Mendez, without whom this would be a very different production, I suspect, changes all that. You almost see instantly, yes, they're still pretty horrible people at the beginning. You're still not going to like them for the first 15 minutes, but you get a sense of their vulnerability. You almost get the sense, without knowing the story, of how they became or why they're so unhappy, even though they're all successful in their own ways. And then certainly as they go backwards, it becomes more and more clear how they all got to where they were from there and lost their optimism and really lost their way, and how they're really just human beings. They are flawed human beings, like all of us are. And they give in to jealousy and greed and unrequited love and ambition and all those things that in some, maybe not to the stakes that the characters have, but that we've all felt through.
Now, let me ask you, we're talking with Brian Scott Lipton about Revival of a Musical, and we talked a bit about the nominees. Do you feel any feeling about 2 that were left out, that could have been considered, like The Wiz and Spamalot? Should
No,
they?
The Wiz made it.
Oh, the Wiz, I'm sorry. The Wiz is up there. I'm sorry for Revival of the Musical.
I believe it is.
Oh, I accidentally left that off my list. Oops, that's my second.
I
Second
think they are.
today.
I think they are.
I
I really enjoyed Spamalot. I'm sorry that it didn't make the cut. I thought it was actually, to me, more fun than the original in a way. Which I think also had something to do with expectation. The first time around, closer to the release of the movies, I think we had a greater expectation for what we were getting. This one, I think, took itself maybe even a little less seriously, which I appreciated. It was a little more bare bones. It came from the Kennedy Center. I will not say it was lavish. I mean, it was lavish in terms of talent. Amazing people. Michael Urie, James Monroe Iglehart, Taran Killam, and especially Leslie Rodriguez Kritzer. But it wasn't great in terms of scenery or costumes. It was fine. And I don't know whether or not that hurt its commercial chances, but I think it really should have been up there.
And what about The Wiz? People can feel kind of meh about it. It's doing, I guess, pretty well at the box office.
It's been doing very well in the box office, which proves that there is definitely an audience for the show, which is really well steeped in nostalgia, both for The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz, and which is the rare kind of true family-friendly entertainment you get on Broadway. And it's wonderful to hear about people bringing their children when they saw it the first time. I mean, I was about 15 when I saw it the first time. I have no children to bring it to, but it is a great exercise in nostalgia. It's part of a national tour, and I don't think it fit all that well on Broadway. I wish it had sort of been reimagined for the Broadway stage. It seemed a little I had to say it. It seemed a little cheap, the sets, the costumes. I mean, they were there, but they didn't quite seem to fit the lavishness of the material. But the cast is very talented. And so, I certainly understand why people had a good time. I certainly also understand why the Tony nominating committee may not have felt it was up there in its top group.
Let me ask you, Brian Scott Lipton, speaking of things that are up there, what are your 2 or 3 favorite shows on or off Broadway, play or musical, of the whole, besides Merrily, of the whole season?
Okay. Before I answer that, what I really want to talk about this season, I'm certainly happy to answer that, is my great admiration and praise for maybe not all, but mostly all of the Broadway actresses we got to see this year. This has been the most extraordinary year for women, play or musical, that I can recall. And in any season that we have been treated to, in no particular order, Sarah Paulson, Jessica Lange, Malaya Joy Moon, Bebe Neuwirth, Keisha Lewis, Cara Young, Sarah Pidgeon. I could go on, but I have really never seen a season. Leslie Rodriguez Kritzer. I have never seen a season this rich in female performances. And if they're not getting these people the opportunities in Hollywood or TV that they deserve, or if it's just a question of loving the stage, I am personally so grateful they are all sharing their talents with us on Broadway. We could have.
That's sort of almost a theme here, because we had Leslie Hoban Blake talking about all these female directors.
Yes, we have some great.
And then we had Carey Purcell, who wrote a book about feminist theater, kind of raving about this idea of, it's a good year.
Yes, we've had wonderful women creators. Shayna Taub, obviously, for Tufts. Alicia Keys writing the score of Hell's Kitchen. I know it is basically a jukebox musical, but that would not be on Broadway without Alicia Keys. Lila Neugebauer, who directed Appropriate. We can go on. It is really the year of the woman on Broadway, and that is to be celebrated. And leading back to your question,
what shows are you celebrating from the past season personally?
Well, okay, on the musical front, I would say my 2 favorites were truly Hell's Kitchen, Even though it is quote unquote a jukebox musical, and I am not intensely familiar with the work of Alicia Keys, but there is so much joy and love and craft on that stage. Yes, the story is a little slight, but it's so beautifully sung, beautifully told. Speaking of women, gorgeously choreographed by Camille Brown, that it really made me happy in a way that nothing else really did this season. In terms also of musicals, I mean, total kudos to The Outsiders, a show I went in with honestly no expectation. I am not of the generation where that book meant really anything toward me, and I barely remember the movie. And it was really, it's sort of an old story. It's kind of just a variation almost on West Side Story, but the people behind this, especially the Coopermans, the brothers who choreographed it, and Dana Tamor, another woman who directed it, and Jamestown Revival, who wrote the score, made it feel fresh and totally new and sort of worth seeing. And thirdly, I guess on the musical front, a big shout out to Illinois. I don't know that I truly believe it's a Broadway musical. It is a modern dance piece that I think works brilliantly in that context. Just because you stuck it in the St. James, I'm not sure I'm willing to call it a Broadway musical, but bravo to Justin Peck. It's amazing choreographer and director and his cast.
It was maybe 10 already 20 years ago when Matthew Byrne was bringing his
Right.
ballets and his things to Broadway. They were technically Broadway musicals in a manner of speaking.
Right. I mean, here we have a story by Jackie Dribble-Suri, and again, another woman. We don't have any dialogue, but it's a very moving experience, and I think it's certainly worth viewing, even if you're not a quote unquote dance aficionado. And on the play front, I know you may be expecting me to say Stereophonic, but that's not actually happening. But the one play I will really give a shout out to is Appropriate, which was also away in a shock. I saw in review the original Signature production in 2013. I did not reread my review till after I saw this production the first time, and it turns out I didn't like it the first time. And I was so curious about what changed. Part of what changed is Brandon Jacobs Jenkins did rewrite his book, and I believe that strengthened his story. Again, Lila Neugebauer did a beautiful job in directing. I can't say enough good things about Sarah Paulson. How she does this particular performance 8 times a week is truly stupefying to me. If you haven't seen it, she plays a very unhappy, very angry woman having to deal with her admittedly dysfunctional family, and the level of passion and anger and sadness that she brings to a stage in full blast 8 times a week is just an acting lesson. It's a masterclass. And I saw it twice. I went back during the recent time being a Tony voter just to reinforce what I thought about it. And wow. And I would say, I mean, I'm, the Tony rules, as you know, David, are a little flaky at times, and I'm a little sorry it's in Revival. I think it really belongs in Best Play. I understand that probably the producers did not want to set up a challenge between it and Stereophonic, and so they maneuvered it. But it's basically almost a new play from 2013. It has not had that much of a regional life. It would have, to my mind, fit more appropriately in Best New Play. And it was by far the finest play I saw here.
Well, we have by far the finest theater critics joining us on the Dave's Gone By Tony special, or Broadway special. And among them, of course, Brian Scott Lipton. Remember that you can read his reviews at citytour.com, CITITOUR.com. Any other places that we can find you or your work or?
I am still doing interviews, and I am very grateful to Theater Mania, where I was, as you know, editor-in-chief for over 8 years. So I'm continuously doing that. I occasionally contribute to theaterpizzazz.com. But yeah, City Tour is my main outlet for reviews, and anyone who wants to see what I really think about things, please go there. I am a first night critic, things do go up on opening nights, and you can compare and contrast me with my colleagues if you so wish. One thing, as you probably know, Dave, is we don't, as theater critic colleagues, really talk to each other before our reviews come out. So I am just as anxious and surprised and upset and thrilled when I see what everybody else has to say.
And that's kind of what we do here on this annual program. Is
right.
One critic loves The Outsiders, another critic just hated it. We've already had that today.
Okay.
Whereas two people just went bonkers over Sarah Paulson inappropriate. So yeah, I mean,
and I do think it's such a rich season, but it is the kind of season where you are going to get very varying degrees. And I know I need to go. One thing I want to say to everybody out there is, when you do read any of us or listen to any of us, I think you always have to be aware that we as critics, as objective as we try to be, and I think we all do, we do bring ourselves into the room. And so it is not altogether surprising sometimes that we disagree. We are lucky that we have a critical community of different genders, sexual orientations, ages, and all of that does influence, in a way, how we feel about things. No matter how you try to get it out of your head, I know a show like Sus is so important to many of my female colleagues because it is such a great feminist anthem, if you want to call it that. It may not speak the same way to men. Lempica, which closed, and which I have no problem saying I didn't like, clearly spoke to queer women in a way it may not have spoken to the rest of us. I am not here to bash Stereophonic, which is very accomplished in its own way, but I think if you are of a certain generation, mine, and you are very familiar with what happened with Fleetwood Mac and the Making of Rumors, which is what this play is about, no matter what anybody would like to tell you, you're going to have a different reaction because it didn't feel as fresh to me as it would to so many of my colleagues that I spoke to who had no idea what the play was about, where I felt like I was almost watching a rehashed biography that I had already read. I mean,
they were the music, Fleetwood Mac, as reimagined in Stereophonic, right?
Right, but it is really their story. I mean, down to very minute details. And so the first time I was really taken out of the play by knowing so much about it. I went back and saw it a second time, and again, I understand the craft more. But so just be aware that we all have our own little things that we bring to the table, and keep that in mind when you read us.
You got it. And thank you for bringing so much to the table with us here on Dave's Gone By. Brian Scott Lipton.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Wonderful Tony night, wonderful season to come. And
enjoy tomorrow night.
Brian Scott Lipton here on.
There's a big thread on Facebook.
Yeah.
Read about they're allowing national news organizations, but not local theater critics, and see the controversies that the theater critics are saying. The big papers won't know who the actors are. Like that, they won't know. They'll only know the big celebrities. They won't know the context because the local critics provide the context of the actors. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to read this out. Thank you for finding this. This is Michael Dale. Actually, I should have asked him to be on this. Because of limited space at the, and I've been mispronouncing it, of course. It's the Koch Theater because it's like the Koch brothers who financed it at Lincoln Center. The Tony Awards is not inviting most of the local Broadway press to the red carpet in favor of national media. Now, I haven't been involved with Tony Award press for several years now, but as I recall, national press depends on the local Broadway press to tell them who the hell everybody is, quote Michael Dale. I mean, I will say this, remember about 3 years ago, in the height of the pandemic, when the Tony Awards were still trying to have Tony Awards, and they allowed, not me, but Rabbi Saul Solomon to be be in the press room, not the red carpet, because there was none, it was all digital, but they allowed, or maybe the ceremony was there, but everything else was kind of digital. But and Rabbi Saul got to talk to Diablo Cody and Matthew Lopez, and it was boring night for Saul because you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Suddenly somebody comes into the room, you shoot them a question, they answer it, and that's that. It's an awful job. But I can't imagine, like now that the Tonys are back to being the Tonys and stuff, and suddenly it's like, oh, well, yeah, we needed you guys when the pandemic was here and nobody cared about Broadway at all because there was no Broadway for a year and a half. And now suddenly it's like, nah, entertainment tonight, come on through, the Podunk Gazette. You can write about us tomorrow.
That's interesting.
So it is what it is. I don't know why. Shouldn't the red carpet, though, be outside?
The red carpet's outside. I think maybe they mean that there's some kind of press room internally. Remember when you used to work for another organization, you could be behind the scenes writing. Maybe they don't allow them in. But
that maybe in that room where they parade.
How can you? Yeah. If you're a theater critic, you want to report live when the awards are announced. You want to be there.
Right. Well, not even at that point. You were a journalist because what you're doing is asking the people, the actors coming off, like, "Hey, how does it feel to win?"
But also, you're there at the awards when it's live. You're doing it from the play, the actual play. Like
David Sheward, I think, said he would be tweeting and Facebooking and mentioning.
But he's not going to be at the awards. People want to be at the ceremony.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of these people. Here's the thing. For many years were. And suddenly this year, it was like, oh, no, we don't have the room. So, there's a new pecking order.
I didn't realize.
And all it does is it also reminds me of when I first joined the American Theater Critics Association, of which I've been a proud member for like 3 decades or so now. But for the first decade or so, there was very much a hierarchy. It was unstated, it was not official. But you kind of knew that, like, the critics who wrote for the major daily newspapers and things like, the major magazines, they were up here, they were on top. And everybody else, and then the penny saver people and the local Gazette people, and then folks who were at that point starting their own websites.
Somebody wrote about the situation. Funny, sad.
Yeah. Folks who wrote for their own websites weren't even looked at. They were just like almost, they were accepted if they wrote enough reviews and if the quality of their work was deemed legitimate criticism. But, it kind of like, welcome. But, these are the Brahmins. These are the high caste people. And then about 10, 15 years into being a member of the organization, everything became topsy-turvy. All these high caste.
Somebody asked why there's no potatoes on the Tony show.
Oh, who asked that?
Nomi.
Really? This is for Nomi. This is for Nomi. But in the last hour, everything was really steady, and now this next to happen. We still have more guests, by the way, coming up. We have trivia, but all those high caste people.
At 11:15 and one that you skipped, you can move later.
Yeah, exactly. But I think mostly we're not live
like
anymore.
6 minutes for the next person.
Yeah, we're good.
And then you have a recorded one. Frank will put later.
Yeah. So we're good. We're rolling on great. But I do want to say all those folks suddenly started getting buyout offers from the newspapers they were writing for. It's like, we can't afford your full-time salary anymore, but you can freelance your reviews to it. And suddenly these people who have been writing for newspapers, full-time people, respected critics. Print. Remember print?
I do.
And then, suddenly they're not. You got to be nice to people on the way up because you can see them on the way down.
You have fallen.
Yeah. And so there's that. And then suddenly blogs became legit.
Look at your experience when you were the president of the theater world, the king of the yellow theater company, yellow and black program company. You had a budget. People were much more they were much more tushy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's understandable to an extent. You get the privilege of being with the old gray lady, the New York Times, or with Playbill.com, or Theater Man. And then, there is understandably a caste system, but, I've lived long enough and been in this business long enough to see the topsy-turvying, the idea of, the blog sometimes is as important as the small newspaper chain in the Midwest or something like that. It's on some level, it's kind of nice to see that shifting. But at the same time, it does lead, again, the caste system happens still. And so you'll get that at the Tony Awards this year.
It's probably about post-COVID recouping the money. So I'm sure it's all about, all about the money, right? So the theater community wants to survive, so they're going to bring in people who they feel can bring more audiences. Like Eva said, she paid $500 for 2 tickets for she and her son.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
That's what it is, man.
Yeah.
So if you're right, if the press people and the producers for the Tony Awards and the American Theater Wing and Theater League feel that this entity will do much more promotion and be much more visible.
What were the sales during COVID? You know, like.
Well, actually, this is a good time for this. I don't know about the COVID thing, but the league, the Broadway League, did release its facts and figures for the past Broadway season. This is probably a good time to get to that. If I can just find it in my tons of paperwork. Here it is, season stats. So for the season that ended on May 22nd, so that's, the season literally goes from middle of May all the way to the beginning of the next May. That's when technically a Broadway season runs. So it started on May 22nd, 2023 and ended this May 19th. That was the theater year. Broadway shows grossed in total $1.54 billion. So it's almost the same as the year before, just slightly lower. And as a virtual tie in terms of attendance was about 12.3 million butts in seats. And just so you know, the season had 71 productions running all together. That included plays and musicals that were running from previous seasons. So 71 total productions, 39 of which were new, 21 musicals, including 16 original new productions and 5 revivals, and 16 non-musical plays, 12 original, 4 revivals, plus 2 special engagements. So that totaled their 71 productions and 39 new productions on Broadway last year, with audiences filling 90% of the seats on Broadway. So not too shabby. Okay, so what, I think it's time for another guest. I think we want to...
At 11:15, you have, I can't see.
Well, we skipped Frank. We got to get Frank in there. So...
What's the thing at 11:15, the other awards?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that a little later. So let me get Frank on because we wanted to have, and we
you have a guest at 11:20.
Yeah, but that's taped, so I can bring that in when I please. Yeah, I think everything else is taped, so I'm pretty good. Here's the deal. What we like to do and have done for many years on our Broadway special is acknowledge that there's a regional theater Tony Award. I was just talking about the American Theater Critics Association. Well, this is a group that one thing that they do is they all vote and decide, hey, what regional theater that never used to include New York, but now also does, what regional theater deserves special recognition from the Tony people? What theater company, not just for a year, but for its longevity and their seasons, in plural, really deserves acknowledgement and a special Tony Award. It's a big thing for a regional theater to get this. So the American Theater Critics, they group together, we vote, and then we submit that recommendation to the Broadway League, to the Tony people. And they don't have to accept it, but they generally do. But it's ATCA's decision, and then the Tonys bring it forward. So this year, they've chosen the Wilma Theater, which is a theater company that's been around for a couple of decades in Philadelphia. Well, why not get a Philadelphia theater critic to talk about not only the Wilma, but other stuff that's been going on in Philadelphia theater, because they'd be experts about it. So we got Frank Burd. Wait, hold on, I'm hitting the wrong thing here. Let me share my Zoom room again, because I talked to Frank earlier this week about the Wilma Theater's Regional Theater Tony that it just won, or will win tomorrow, and then Philadelphia theater in general. So here in the Daverhood on Dave's Gone By, Frank Burd. And we are back with more of the Total Theater Tony Show here on Dave's Gone By. And, this year, the Regional Theater Tony, which is generally agreed upon first by the American Theater Critics Association, and they make a recommendation to the wing and the league, and usually, almost always, it's adopted, and they chose the Wilma Theater Company in Philadelphia. And I thought, hey, let's get a Philadelphia area theater critic to weigh in, not just on the Wilma, but on Philadelphia theater in general. And this is a guy I've known for many, many years. He used to write for This Month on Stage, a hard copy review publication I was doing back in the 1990s. But he's also written for the Broad Street Review and the Chestnut Hill Local and Montgomery papers all over Montgomery County. He now has, and has had for a little while, his own website, birdreviews.com, which is an appropriate name because he's Frank Burd, and he's with us in the Daverhood now. Welcome. First time to the Daverhood, Frank Burd. How you doing?
Hi, Dave. I'm doing okay. Getting out to theater as much as I can. For whatever it's worth, I'm dealing with long COVID, but it's still it's so exciting to be in the theater and to experience new things or find versions of old things.
Now, let me ask before we get to anything specific, what was the best show you saw in and around Philly this year?
Wow, that is so hard because I've seen several shows by 1812 Productions that I loved, the Flatlanders, as well as their production of Torch Song. They did a great production. I loved Interact Theater's shows that they've done this year. I mean, it's been really good. They did something, a world premiere of The Last Yiddish Speaker, and recently something called The Climb. I love that. And Tony Braithwaite up here in Ambler does some great stuff, and Arden is always doing interesting stuff.
This brings us to, again, before we get to like the Tonys itself, that when you started reviewing Philadelphia theater, there was not this level of production in quality or quantity. Like, how long ago was that, and what was it like?
No, the truth is, I moved to Philadelphia after college. I wasn't so much involved in theater. But growing up in New York and going into the city by subway to see off-Broadway stuff or sit in the back row of the balcony with binoculars at a Broadway show, I went, this is a wasteland. There's no theater. There's nothing good. There's nothing much. The Walnut Street Theater had not been reopened, even though that's America's oldest theater, until the 1980s when Bernard Havard came and revitalized it. In its building. So there was nothing. And then little by little, by the time of, this was 68, by the 80s, theater was underway and so many different theater groups starting up. And so that's when it really started to get good and more spaces and more theaters. And it became a very exciting place. I even tried to start my own theater for a couple of years, but I'm not a producer.
And what was the name of your theater company, by the way, back in the...
What do we call it? Independent City Theater. And I did 5 shows over 2.5 years. And I thought the shows were good. We even got reviewed. But you need a full staff. You need producers. You need so many people. And I had a full-time job. I couldn't just vacate my job to run theater. And I had young children. So it was okay.
You did it, and it probably informed your work now as a theater critic. Not that it made you easy on plays, but at least you understood where directors and producers were coming from in trying.
Well, it made me understand a lot. As I said, maybe I didn't. I've directed some 50 plays in my lifetime, so I have a point of view from a director also. And when I see a show that's not working for me, I have to ask myself, is it the writing? Is it the directing, or is it the acting? And a lot of people sometimes criticize the acting, and I know it's actually, this is a good actor, and this person didn't get the direction he or she needed. So it's a real tricky thing,
Now, speaking of tricky things, you're a little reticent in talking about the Wilma Theater, even though they won the Regional Theater Tony this year. They're going to be honored tomorrow night. So first of all, give us a little background, a little history on the Wilma.
Well, I don't remember when it was when I started going to the Wilma. They had a little site on a little theater called Sansom Street, and it was run by Blanca and Yuri Ziska. They were immigrants from Czechoslovakia. I don't know when they came in the 70s, and they created some really interesting offbeat stuff in a very small space that I found fascinating and liked most of the time. But then again, who likes all theater anyway? But it was interesting. And then I forget how many years ago it was, maybe 20 years ago, they moved to a large venue on Broad Street, a big theater, and they continued doing stuff. And then Blanca retired from the head of the theater about 2 years ago. And she comes down to opening. She's moved away, but it's in other people's hands right now. So.
And you haven't particularly liked at least the last year or two of the work you've been doing.
See, how do I put this? The last show I saw that was very, very challenging for me. It was Brecht's the Good Person of Szechuan, and they did a 4-hour production with one intermission. That was so hard for me to deal with. The person I brought with me said, "Can we leave at the intermission?" And there were many people who did. And of course, you can read other people who loved its unique approach, which is, how do I put it? The Wilma Theater stuff in the last 2 years has been over the top acting, over what I call overacting. But that's just me. I do not assume I have the last word in what works and what's not. I only know what works for me. And so the last production, and the one before it, what was that one called? My Mama and the Full-Scale Invasion. It didn't work for me as well either. And yet they've produced, last year they produced a play by a show that went to New York and won, I forgot what it won for the playwright, which I had just had a gallbladder operation, so I missed that show. But
that probably put them on the radar strongly.
I think so. That show back in the fall was a major show. I think the playwright's name was James I. James. It's a very strange combination of names because
was that Fat Ham?
Yes, Fat Ham.
Okay,
Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I'm in Maryland now. I'm not even in New York, but
Okay.
Fat Ham's been all over. And James I. James has gotten a lot of plays done. So
And I've seen other stuff of his that I've liked, and I tried to watch it on video, and a play is not meant to be seen on video. It's your eyes are moving all over the stage. Your eyes are following this actor who's reacting as opposed to this who's talking. And so I couldn't appreciate it. But I've seen other stuff that James I. James has done, and he's really good. So, and how do I put it? Wilma takes chances. They go out on a limb, and
well, that's important.
Recently, their stuff hasn't appealed to me as much as the stuff that Blanca and Yuri used to do.
But I'm saying it's like, had the Tonys decided to award the Walnut Theater, a lot of critics would go, "Oh, come on, they're just doing old musicals from Broadway, from this," and then it's like yawn, even though audiences love it, and it's
Let me say something about the Walnut, if I may.
Sure.
So I actually rented space in the small theater upstairs at the Walnut to put on some of my plays. I even rented space from the old Wilma when I had my own theater. And they had a theater upstairs that sat about 75 or 80. And I loved what they did upstairs, which was so different from main stage stuff, new stuff. That all stopped with the pandemic, and they haven't begun their upstairs stuff. As far as the main stage stuff, they do stuff that makes the theater successful. They sell out. They do popular musicals, popular plays. I saw a play there. It was an outstanding production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf that they did with Greg Wood. Greg Wood is currently touring with To Kill a Mockingbird for the last 2 years, but he had some time off, and it was outstanding production. So they tend to do about 3 musicals and 2 non-musicals every year, and they're always filled. The other thing is,
critics and organizations don't respect that as much
I know.
as the theater that goes really out on a limb and is taking wild chances.
I know, and I think Bernard, who's the producing artistic director, has realized that, and so he's not put his theater into the Barrymore mix, because people would say, oh, they have money, oh, they have this, they have that. They didn't measure the quality of the show. They wrote him off too easily. And I'm not going to say I love everything that they do, but I don't review anything at the Walnut because I know Bernard, and it would be a conflict of interest. I know him too well.
And you said something really, before we got you on camera, you said some really nice stuff about him. He was really, really helpful to you when you had a terrible,
when I had a serious injury, he sent me flowers to the hospital. He invited me down to his place to stay for a few days. He had a place near the Jersey Shore, and he's just such a kind man, such a good person that I actually saw a preview once, a final preview before a show opened of his, and I liked it so much. I said, Bernard, this is a preview. I would like to review it because, and so I did review one Walnut thing, but that was exceptional.
Well, it has been exceptional talking with Frank Burd. I want to send people to his website because you can read his reviews of Philadelphia area theater there. It's birdreviews.com. And
incidentally, Burd is spelled with a B-U-R-D, right? Not a guy. Yeah. Okay.
B-U-R-D, birdreviews.com, to hear more from this man that we are very happy and proud to have in the Daverhood. Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you, Dave. It was a pleasure.
Frank Burd on the Dave's Gone By special. So yes, we've had some wonderful, wonderful people weighing in on Broadway theater, even off-Broadway theater and regional theater, because Wilma has won the Regional Theater Tony. We still have more to do on this 948th episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream. We still have theater critic Raven Snook coming up, who's going to be talking about featured actress in a play in this show that has seemed to have actresses and women in theater as a theme. And we have a sound designer, who is a woman, Leah Gelpe. She is Tony nominated for the play Mary Jane. So all that is coming up, but I do want to take just a couple of minutes.
You want to do the quiz?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of trivia. This is, what I'll do is I've just got a couple of trivia questions that you guys can think about. Oh, my, I have my phone. Hold on, here it is. Yeah, sure. One moment. And by the way, I'm Dave Lefkowitz. That's my darling and adorable wife who's helping me out with the program, as she always does. And I really, really appreciate that. So here we go. So here's the deal. I'll give you a moment or two to cogitate, to think. No fair Googling, but I guess you can. So here's the deal. They're just trivia questions, somewhat based on the Tony nominees of the year. For example, and actually I think I'll put on my glasses for this, it'll help. One of this year's Best Play Revival nominees is An Enemy of the People, about a doctor who warns a town of a health risk about which the town is not ready to listen. The new Broadway production at Circle in the Square is translated and adapted by Amy Herzog, or Herzog, I think, from an 1882 drama by what playwright? Okay. Oh, no, you probably know this, but I'll ask the question again. Think about it for a moment, and then I'll re-ask the question, as I tend to do on Dave's Gone By when we do our trivia quiz, but I'll read it one more time. So one of this year's Best Play Revival nominees is An Enemy of the People. It's about a doctor who warns a town of a health risk, but the town is not ready to listen. Now, the new Broadway production at Circle in the Square is both translated and adapted by Amy Herzog from what playwright's 1882 drama, An Enemy of the People? I'm going to give a little, I guess I'll do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. Well, that's no fair. But I'll let you have the answer when you Google it. So.
Wait, give me a hint. Give hints.
Hints? More hints. What is another hint?
Bernard Shaw.
It is not Bernard Shaw. That's actually a good, because it is a politically oriented social play. Yeah. But think a different country. Think more. Think
Ibsen? Not Ghosts. Ghosts?
Well, the name of the play was An Enemy of the People.
Oh,
Ibsen wrote that.
Ibsen,
yeah.
Ibsen wrote An Enemy of the People. I knew that.
Right. That's why I said you know that. So Amy Herzog did a different translation and adapted it. But here, for an extra point, ladies and gentlemen, 70 years before Amy Herzog, the best-known English translation and adaptation of An Enemy of the People was done by what playwright who saw the work as a way to respond to McCarthyism and the Red Scare? So take them on. If you know it, don't say it immediately. I want to give people a chance at home to play along. I'll read the question one more time. 70 years before Herzog's new version, the best-known English translation and adaptation of An Enemy of the People was done by what playwright who saw the work as a way to respond to McCarthyism and the Red Scare? It's kind of a clue right there. All right, I'll give a countdown. Do you want to take a stab? Because that clue is this person also wrote at least one other play that dealt both directly and indirectly with McCarthyism and scapegoating. And
should have had David Sheward on that.
yeah, well, he would have known. David would have just gotten these in like a quarter second. So the answer is, do you want to take a shot?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, God. No. No, the answer is, take one more stab? No.
Trotsky.
It was not Leon Davidovich Trotsky, no. It was, in fact, Arthur Miller.
Oh, yes.
Totally, because the Crucible, too.
Husband, I would have
Well, yeah. So, all right, that's one trivia question. We'll do a couple of these, and then we'll save a couple more for later in the broadcast. All right, Tony-nominated musical revivals this year include the Kander and Ebb classic Cabaret, now playing at the August Wilson Theater.
Why do I ask you and then you answer?
Because I might not remember. My brain is so. I might be like, I just did these yesterday. Oh, but there's a revival of Cabaret, which is at the August Wilson Theater. Welcome, friends, étrangers, strangers. Okay. Which they refashioned into the Kit Kat Club. Now, lyricist Fred Ebb and composer John.
Let me ask you, are Kit Kats named after the Kit Kat Club?
I don't think they would be near. They and Cabaret would not.
What does Kit Kat mean?
I don't know. Kitty Cat. Maybe it's a way of saying Kit. I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up.
Joyce is gonna Google Kit Kat, the candy bar, and see where they got that name. I am interested.
What does Kit Kat mean? It's all the bar.
Yeah.
What does the term mean? It said the name Kit Kat or Kit Kat for a type of food, 18th century.
18th century.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Maybe it means a little nosh, a little bite. Where does it come from?
It doesn't make sense.
Or maybe like it's small, so it's a kitten, like a kitty cat. I don't know. That's a better trivia question than what I got.
This somewhat simple name was derived from the Kit Kat Club, an 18th century club. So look,
it really was the Kit Kat Club. Look at that.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true.
Well, this Kit Kat Club was an exclusive 18th century club for the elite in London.
Yeah.
Well, of course, in the 3Ks in Cabaret are Weimar, Germany club. Thank you for that. Wow.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm sorry.
But Kander and Ebb, lyricist Fred Ebb and composer John Kander collaborated on many other musicals besides Cabaret. They did Chicago, of course. And all of these lesser-known musicals, except which?
The oldest candy bar is called Fry's Chocolate Cream.
Sounds good to me. Chocolate. What are you not liking about chocolate cream? What goes better than chocolate cream? All right. So I'm gonna list 4 musicals here, all of which except one the scores were co-written by Kander and Ebb.
Okay.
Can you tell me which is not the Kander and Ebb? So, and then give people at home a chance before you say. So, is it the Scottsboro Boys, the Happy Time, the Baker's Wife, Steel Pier? So there are 4 Broadway musicals. 3 of them had scores by Kander and Ebb. One of them did not. So I'll read them again. The Scottsboro Boys, The Happy Time, The Baker's Wife, Steel Pier. you want to take a guess on that one?
The Happy Times.
Is that the correct answer, ladies and gentlemen? No, sorry. The Happy Time wasn't very early.
Is it the first one that you said?
Actually, no, the Scottsboro Boys was a candidate, a pretty recent
The Baker's
one.
Wife?
It was the Baker's Wife. Good job.
I choose C. I choose C.
Yeah, The Baker's Wife was by Stephen Schwartz and Joseph Stein, the guy who co-wrote Fiddler on the Roof. And by the way, Scottsboro Boys was from 2010. Happy Time was going back to 1968. And Steel Pier was from 1997. I actually saw that one. In fact, our friend of the neighborhood, Karen Ziemba, was in that one. And then, I'm going to do one more trivia question, and then we'll save the rest for later. And everybody's been talking about this one during the show. The multi-nominated musical revival of Merrily We Roll Along brings with it Daniel Radcliffe's first Tony nomination. But he's been on Broadway 4 times before. Which of these is not a Broadway show that has featured Daniel Radcliffe? Okay.
The one with the horse.
The one, well, which of these is not a Broadway show with Daniel Radcliffe in it? The Cripple of Inishmaan, Equus, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, The Lifespan of a Fact. So, let the folks at home. Da 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 So, I'll read the question one more time. Which of these Broadway shows did not feature Daniel Radcliffe? Was it The Cripple of Inishmaan, Equus, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, The Lifespan of a Fact? Do you want to take
So I'm Inishmaan, I think, I don't know what part he would play, but I also don't think he was in the Harry Potter thing on Broadway. I mean, he wasn't in it. It was about him. It wasn't him. I know he was in the horse one, so I'm going to say the Harry Potter one.
Is that your final answer?
I'm going to say it. I don't think he's in the musical about himself. Yeah.
Yes! Yes! Touchdown pass to my darling and adorable wife. Yes, because it was kind of a trick question. He was, of course, Harry Potter in all the movies, but he was not on Broadway, and which is, by the way, still running. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is a sequel to all of those shows. I'm sorry, to all those books and films, but Radcliffe wasn't in that. He was in all of those other productions, Cripple of Inishmaan in 2014.
Who did he play? What was his
He was
role
Cripple
in
Billy. He was the young... Yeah.
I always see that as an older role.
No.
No? Okay.
And then Equus, he was, of course, the young boy who blinded the horses.
Yeah.
And then How to Succeed, he was also in How to Succeed in Business, the revival of that in 2011, and the drama The Lifespan of a Fact in 2018.
That's a great name.
So, all right, Tony trivia aside, we still have more to do with the Dave's Gone By. So yes, I told you that our third hour would be twisted out of shape a little bit. Before, you know what, let's get to another of our guests, because I also want to run down a little bit of some of the other award winners of the year. I can take these glasses off that are just showing my ring light. And also a couple more trivia questions, and we have to do some passings of theater people who passed away this past year that were on this show over the years. But before all that, let's get to a very special guest who is not a theater critic. This is someone who actually works in the theater and has worked since the 90s in regional theater, off-Broadway, off-Broadway, and finally getting her first Broadway credit. She is Tony nominated for it. She is sound designer Leah Gelpe, who, and by the way, international too, because she worked for a few years in Israel. So it is a delight for us to have Leah Gelpe in the Daverhood, because she is Tony nominated for the Broadway play Mary Jane. Take it away, Leah. Well, here on our 19th annual Broadway special on Dave's Gone By, very excited to have a new person in the Daverhood, even though she's been doing design for the theater for, my gosh, almost 30 years now, and she is Tony nominated for doing the sound design on Mary Jane, the new play. So let me tell you just a little bit about Leah Gelpe. She has done multimedia theater for many years. In fact, she worked with a director named Jay Scheib since the mid-1990s. She's done projections on and off-Broadway at places like The Vineyard, Playwrights Horizons, Minetta Lane Theater, before now kind of moving into sound. In 2017, she did the sound design for Mary Jane off-Broadway. Now the show has come to Broadway. It's making her Broadway debut as well as her debut here in the Daverhood. Won't you please welcome Leah Gelpe? Welcome, Leah.
Thank you very much.
All right, stupid question. How does it feel to be nominated for a Tony Award?
I mean, it's exciting. It's, obviously a great honor. I love the play Mary Jane. I think it's such an important work. And it's a project that I've sort of been involved in for years. And so it was really exciting to be able to bring it to a much wider audience.
Now, I want to hear the difference between working on Mary Jane off-Broadway and doing it on Broadway now. But first, can you explain to people, because a lot of folks will think, well, what is sound that you just like people? And, you put in the hair, or you put in...
Yeah.
What do you do as a sound designer?
Well, as a sound designer, I consider myself responsible for really everything that the audience hears from the moment that they enter the theater building. Not necessarily responsible for it, but thinking about it and making decisions about it. So that includes what you hear when you walk through the lobby and what you hear when you enter into the empty theater. And it really, yes, reinforcement is a big part of it, particularly in musicals and in a large theater, like on a Broadway stage. But it also is the whole soundscape of the play. And that could involve music, sound effects, environmental noise, lots of sounds that maybe the audience doesn't even consciously perceive, but are affecting the experience and the understanding of what's happening on stage. Everything that, say there's an event that happened once, years ago, I did a production of Saved, and there's a very dramatic scene in that play in which some kids throw stones into a baby carriage, right?
That was Edward Bond's English play, by Edward Bond, right?
Right, exactly. So the sound of what happens when those, right? You're not going to put a little speaker in a baby carriage and make the sounds of that. That's never going to really work in that moment because it's a horrific sort of moment. So I spent a long time working on what that sound would be. So anything that is live that's happening on stage that has to make a sound, that's also part of what I get involved in.
Well, what might be an example in Mary Jane of a scene where you're doing your work and the audience notices it maybe, but only subliminally, but you're making sure that it's there.
Right. Well, without giving away anything, the final scene in the play has a constant soundscape, and the elements in it are shifting and mounting and heightening throughout the scene. But I don't think that the average person, even the not average person, would necessarily register that the sound of the fluorescent lights is very sort of particularly used, and it's not actually the sound of the fluorescent lights, and that there's other sort of tonal things and rain that are happening that are pushing us towards the end of the play, and the sort of dramatic moment.
This makes me just want to ask a question. What is the most creative thing that you've ever done to do, almost like a Foley artist thing, in terms of sound? Like to make something that we perceive as what's really going on, even though your actual sound thing wasn't that.
You mean like an on-stage
or
event.
pre-recorded, but when you
Or-
did the recording, you know, a
Mhm.
truck going by might not necessarily be a truck
Right.
going by. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that that was probably in a play called Slow Girl that I did at LCT3, which Annie Kaufman also directed. And in that play, there's a scene where the characters wake up and they hear, what kind of animal is it? But a large lizard crawling across the corrugated tin roof, right, at night. And it has very particular cues and they're worried about it. And so that involved a lot of experimentation in how to make that sound. So at one point I cut up credit card and attached it to my fingers, and I was, you know, scraping it on different surfaces and recording that and trying to use that as playback, you know, and that didn't work. And we just tried lots of things, and it ended up being a large, like, rubbery plastic lizard toy, essentially, that we attached like screws and nails to, and then it was pulled on a rope across the roof in the moment on stage, because there are certain things that really, you know, you feel if it is a sound that is there,
Versus
or
pre-recorded. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So I was going to ask you, in terms of Mary Jane, what were the differences, if any, between doing it at off-Broadway a few years back, with smaller audience, smaller house, smaller that,
Yeah.
the Broadway production that's on right now?
Well, it's very different because this play in particular has a lot of intimacy in it, and being able to move into a much larger space and yet preserve that sense of intimacy, particularly sound-wise, was quite challenging. I mean, you have a different room, a different way that you need to make sounds move sort of geographically in space. But in terms of reinforcement, it took a long time for us to get to the right place where you could still, the actors could perform with a sense of intimacy, and yet everyone could hear them throughout the theater, and it wouldn't sound mic'd.
And, you know, speaking of mic'd, and this does bring up a question that a lot of people have about sound in general on Broadway, where either they complain it's tinny, that's the word everybody uses, or why does everything now have to be so loud, almost like a rock concert? Do you try and shy away from that, or how do you deal with tinny?
I think that there's a lot more room on stage to make the experience also in musicals be one where we are watching human beings and the human beings are speaking and singing rather than a flat kind of image of sound coming at you. I think that the tinniness is, you know, it's really an issue of EQing each person individually. Now, I work with an associate, Sam Kuznets, who is just a genius with these things. And so in Mary Jane, the stage is divided into, I think, 6 different zones for us. And every time an actor moves from one zone to the next, their voices shift into a different preset, because you want to preserve a sense of space. So you can't just have, if an actor's standing extreme stage right, you can't have their voice coming out of the center. So every zone had a different composition of, you know, surround speakers and the main speakers and fills that were part of that picture. And I think, and then being really skilled, which again, Sam was instrumental in this, at tracking the EQ needs of each particular actor, also from scene to scene, depending on what kind of performance
And also, if they're supposed to be in a different room in each scene, I imagine the room has different acoustics, different echo, different. Does he work that in as well? I'm guessing. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, when it came to the other room, that's true. That was a real trying to preserve the sense that those people are physically in that other space and yet have them be heard. That was a whole nother set. We experimented a lot with that, with how to, the degree to which people could be live, not live, but that their voices could be sort of naked coming out of the room, and to the degree to which that needed to be reinforced. It's tricky.
Now, let me ask you, now that you've got this Tony nomination and you are sound designer, Leah Gelpe, sorry, does that push away the multimedia stuff? You used to do projections mainly for your off Broadway work and your work when you were in Israel. So, now do you have to be a sound person, or can you still move among the multimedia things?
Well, I've actually, although I think I've always done sound too. And I used to kind of go back and forth a lot, or during the period when I was working with Jay Scheib, I would often do the sound and the video, and they're very tied together. We were working with a lot of live feed, and the sound and video came hand in hand. As my work has continued, I am doing more and more sound, and at this point, I usually do video when and if it is intricately tied to the sound. So if they really require that kind of tight-knit, because otherwise it's very, on productions where I'm doing sound and someone else is doing the video, and yet they have to be closely tied together, it can get, interdepartmental, it's tricky. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it absolutely does. And we just have time for one more quick question for Leah Gelpe, Tony nominee. Well, what are you working on now? Is that something coming to off-Broadway or Broadway or elsewhere in the country? What are you working on?
I am working on getting more work. I feel like, honestly, I went off onto the mommy track for a while. I have a couple of kids, and now they're getting older, and I feel sort of more able to step back into a busier schedule. But that's a shift, and I'm speaking with different people, but
well, the nomination.
Let's see.
The fact that you're now Leah Gelpe, Tony nominee is that goes top of the resume right there.
That's true. I'm hoping this will boost me. Yeah.
Certainly will. I hope so too, because you've been an absolutely delightful guest. I do want to wish you a mazel tov on your nomination and the kids. So
thank you.
Great time for you. Thank you so much, Leah Gelpe, for joining us in the Daverhood.
My pleasure.
And a pleasure to see so many talented and terrific people in the Daverhood here on the Dave's Gone By Tony special this year, 2024. I should keep mentioning that it's Saturday, June 15th, 2024, that we're doing this the day before the Tonys, which come tomorrow night. You can watch them on CBS if you have regular television, rabbit ears or cable. If you don't, you have to pay, which kind of sucks. You have to get Paramount Plus from CBS, although I think they give you a week. If you don't have it, you have one free week, so you can kind of sign up, keep it for a week, and get rid of it if you don't like it. But that's just the way everything is with sports and everything else. You gotta shell out one way or another. But what is free is that if you sign up to Pluto TV, they're free no matter what. You can just watch it. And the pre-show, the red carpet, I think Juliana Hough is co-hosting that with someone. The hour and a half before the actual Tonys, those are going to be free to watch on Pluto TV, so you might want to see that. Anyway, it's still a little bit before noon Eastern time on this Saturday morning as we do our 948th episode of the Dave's Gone By show. Well, before we do a bit more trivia, and then we have one more critic, Raven Snook, who's going to be joining us as well. But I also want to do, as promised, a couple of minutes just about passings. Now, on Broadway, or in the Tony Awards tomorrow night, they will have an in memoriam segment, just as they do at the Oscars. And that's an important thing where they'll mention all these folks who labored and gave their love and their time and their effort and their genius to Broadway over the past few decades. We also have people who are Broadway and theater related on Dave's Gone By over our past 21 and a half years of doing the show, and some of whom have passed this past year. So it is just a recognition of theater people whom we lost in the year 23 into 24 over the theater season. And those include, oh my God, Tom Jones, and I don't mean, Tom Jones, It's Not Unusual, the singer guy. I mean the guy who co-wrote The Fantastics and 110 in the Shade and musicals like I Do, I Do. Tom Jones, who worked with Harvey Schmidt all those years, and you even got to see him in nearly Dotage, although he never really went into Dotage. He was on off-Broadway, in his own show, in The Fantastics, well into, I guess, his 80s. But he passed away in August of last year. Also, a woman who lived, I think, till 102. Certainly, I know she made it to 101, but Irene Bakalennik, she was a theater critic, a longtime acquaintance of mine, and then in her later years became a published poet. So it's sad that we ultimately did lose Irene Bakalennik. She passed last December. Sheldon Harnick. I mentioned Fiddler on the Roof before. Yeah, that Sheldon Harnick, man. The final piece of that Fiddler puzzle. Also, She Loves Me and Fiorello. Sheldon Harnick, he lived a nice long life. I think he made it to 89 or at least 88. He passed in June of last year, so was already just into this new Broadway season. And this is going to sound like a bit of an outlier, but Peter Schickele of PDQ Bach fame. Peter Schickele, born in 1935, and then he died in January of this year. Now, Peter Schickele.
Are you doing? They should hold a candle for the dead.
Right. This is the memoriam. This is a candle in the window for them. Yeah, it's hard to see, but it's actually yellow, not white. But Peter Schickele did all those comedy albums. Iphigenia in Brooklyn. Great mix of classical music and comedy. But did you know that he contributed material and was part of the onstage band in the early months and probably a year or two of O Calcutta back in, I guess, the 60s and 70s. So he does have an IBDB Broadway credit. So again, farewell to Tom Jones, Irene Bakalennik, Sheldon Harnick, and Peter Schickele, all of them guests in the Daverhood. And if you want to see their interviews, again, just go to davesgoneby.com or our channel, our page on archive.org. And you can, most of these are audio interviews, but you can rewatch them or rehear them anytime you want to. And we're proud of having people like that in the Daverhood with us. So before we get to Raven Snook, who is our final critic of the morning turning into the afternoon on our Tony broadcast, I do want to just take a moment because the Tonys are not the only theater awards in New York. So and forget only New York, also elsewhere. So let's just remind you of some other awards that happened over the past few weeks. For example, there's the Pulitzers. The Pulitzers were given out, and the award went to a play by Ebony Booth called Primary Trust that was done off-Broadway by the Roundabout Theater Company. Runners-up for the Pulitzer this year were Moises Kaufman and Amanda Gronich's There Are Blueberries, which one or two of our other panelists mentioned, and then Public Obscenities, which is a play, I don't know if that has been done in New York, by Shayak Misha Chowdhury. Now, the New York Drama Critics Circle, which is a fairly major but small organization, they give out just a couple of prizes every year. They gave the best play to Stereophonic. Boom, boom.
That was mentioned a couple times.
Normally they give a best foreign play award, but they declined to give one this year. But for best musical, they chose Off-Broadway's Dead Outlaw, which some people also talked about on the
Why
show.
didn't they give that award they held?
They choose, sometimes the Pulitzers choose not to give.
I didn't think they could do that. I thought you had to give an award for everything.
Don't have to give something to anybody. But yeah, so, and they did give a special citation to Merrily We Roll Along, and, oh, if you can hand me that book, to the Broadway revival of Pearly Victorious. Yeah, thank you very much. Of Pearly Victorious, which I watched on video. It's a really, really fun production that's directed by Kenny Leon. But Pearly Victorious, Ossie Davis's play, which is funny and dark and satirical. And it's not actually not that dark, but it's got barbs in it. Very, very well worth watching. If you just log on to public television, PBS, and I think you just put your email address or just log in, you can watch for free their broadcast of Pearly Victorious, the Broadway production that they did this season. So it won also a special citation from the New York Drama Critics Circle, which gave one a special award also to writer Heather Christian, who created something called Oratorio for Living Things that was done a little over a year ago off Broadway. And we're very excited to say that the New York Drama Critics Circle gave Lifetime Achievement Awards to the very, very deserving Marianne Plunkett, who is on Broadway in The Notebook, wonderful actress, and her husband and our friend of the Daverhood, J.O. Sanders, who is in Pearly Victorious. Here he is, a very featured role, and he's very, very good in it. So yay. I want to let you know very quickly that the drama desk that David Sheward was the president of for a while, they gave a bunch of awards to Stereophonic, the David Ajmi play, for Best Play, Director of a Play, and even a special ensemble award. For musical, they went with Dead Outlaw, also for lyrics to a musical and book of a musical. However, for music, they gave it to Shana Taub for Suffs. Appropriate got Best Play Revival from them, and then Musical Revival off Broadway's I Can Get for You wholesale. Let's see, the Outer Critics Circle Awards, they gave their special John Gassner Playwriting Award to Oh Mary, which is going to be coming to Broadway from off Broadway this coming season. For Best Broadway Play and Director of a Play, Stereophonic. For Director of a Musical, they gave it to Jessica Stone for Water for Elephants, the circusy show. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Here it is. Here's the elephant. Thank you. From Water for Elephants. And then for Broadway musical, book, and score, Shana Taub's Suffs. Off-Broadway musical went to Dead Outlaw, and they also gave us an award to Primary Trust. So, and let's see, and if you've forgotten, the Tony Awards, I'm going to save that maybe for later because that might conflict with our trivia questions. So let's do a little bit more trivia, and then we'll have Raven Snook chime in on one more Tony category this year. So are you ready for a little bit more trivia?
You know I'm bad at it, but I will try.
My dear darling. Well, here we go. Here we go. One more. Here's another trivia question. With her nod for choreographing the musical Hell's Kitchen, Camille A. Brown notches her 4th Tony nomination. 2 of her previous nominations were for directing and choreographing the 2022 revival of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. Her 3rd nomination was for the play with music Choir Boy, and though not nominated in 2017, Brown memorably choreographed the revival of what colorful and mythic Aaron's and Flaherty musical?
Give more hints.
Let's see. All right.
Colorful and
mythic musical by Aaron's and Flaherty. Let's see. What else can I say about it?
Give mythic. What kind of mythic? What kind of myth?
Well, think of
Type of myth?
not so much Greek myths, but more.
Troilus and Cressida.
Think more tropical.
Disney?
That'd be fair.
Like a Disney?
Like Disney, but not Disney.
What's a tropical myth?
Well, it was based on a new myth, not an old myth. But they created this mythical fable story. of a girl who falls in love out of her station.
That's everything. She
Yes.
stoops to conquer.
No, no, I'm going to give a 3, 2, 1 on this.
Okay.
And the answer is not 3 times, not twice, but just once on this island. So yeah, so Camila A. Brown, she was not nominated for that, but she did direct that, the revival of that show in 2017. All right, here's another one. Let's try this one. Although he has been on Broadway half a dozen times, Mother Play marks the first Tony nomination for The Big Bang Theory star Jim Parsons. He did win a Drama Desk Award as part of the ensemble. Oh, you okay?
No, I remember. I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah, he won a Drama Desk Award as part of the ensemble of this 2011 play revival. You'll know this one. A semi-fictionalized drama about the real gay men who formed ACT UP and the gay men's health crisis in response to AIDS. Name that play.
Oh, I know part of it.
You do. Don't say it.
I know the second word. I don't know the first word.
And you do know it because I saw what you were
But
pointing
I
to.
don't know
Yeah.
the first word, not the.
You don't say it yet. I'll reread the question. So, although Jim Parsons has been on Broadway half a dozen times, Mother Play is his first Tony nomination. He won a Drama Desk Award back in 2011 for the revival. It was as part of the ensemble.
Oh, I know it.
Okay, don't say it. I'll set you up.
I didn't look at it. I remembered it.
This was a semi-fictionalized
right.
drama about the real gay men who formed ACT UP and the gay men's health crisis in response to
I'm gonna
AIDS.
type it and you'll tell me if it's right. Okay.
And the name of the play
Is it The Normal Heart?
by Larry Kramer.
I loved it.
Yes.
I loved it.
Great
I
play.
cried a lot.
Yeah.
It was a great play.
Yeah. We saw a production off Broadway that was before this one, before the
this is
revival.
Broadway?
This was a Broadway revival in 2011.
Oh.
And then Joel Grey directed another revival on Broadway a couple of years back.
Your last guest said, like Leah said, that it must be hard because that play is very intimate and small and cozy, like it's very wrenching. How do you do that on Broadway? Like it's like small.
It's
big. Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful and
Beautiful.
wonderful play. Anyway, well done.
One
Hope
for
you got
four.
it.
One for
No, you're 2 for 4 because you got another one last time, I think.
No, I didn't. On the Harry Potter one, yeah.
You did.
I didn't get Baker's Wife and I didn't get On This Island, but I got Harry Potter and The Normal Heart.
Yes, there you go. Not too shabby. I mean, not everybody has spent 35 years being a theater critic. But I'll tell you someone who has spent many years being a theater critic. Her name is Raven Snook. Very smart, very delightful person. And she is our last critic of the show on this Saturday, June 15th, the day before the Tony Awards.
What a good guess you had, Dana.
They've all been great.
I thought the
yeah.
sound woman was really interesting.
Yes.
The way that they have zones on stage and they follow the actor and it jumps from one zone to the next and
yeah, everybody's had something interesting to contribute.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. I'm just having an absolute blast, as I always do.
I liked how Brian said that the social position of the critic has to be taken into account when you read the review.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody, and then it's like when you read I knew someone who was betting on sports, an Uber driver, and he always listened to one show. And I said, "Why do you listen to this show?" He said, "Because I like the way that he makes his predictions on who's going to win." So with critics, you pick somebody who has your the same way of thinking.
Well, also when I teach, it's the rhetorical situation that I teach in English class, where there's always when you're writing, it's not just what you're writing about, it's whom are you writing for, and who are you, because that informs either directly or indirectly everything. Are you male or are you female? Are you gay or are you straight? Are you this or every ounce of you will inform your opinion and the way you tackle something. So Raven Snook is the editor of TDF Stages and
TDF?
Theater Development Firm.
The discount tickets that $500 for 2 tickets.
500, for when
and she
Eva.
bought binoculars. Eva said she had binoculars with those seats.
Which means that she spent $250 for a seat far enough away that she needed binoculars.
And those probably partially included from what
Oh, maybe, yeah. Unbelievable. But TDF is at least an organization.
How old is it?
wow, 70s, I believe. I mean, I was sending away when I was in college for the TDF twofers. Remember those?
I remember the teacher's
the slips?
discount.
Yeah.
I thought the T was for teacher all the time, like the teacher's discount.
Because teachers would sign up for it, yeah. And you still can, by the way. TDF still you can send away, and there's an annual fee now of coolers, but it's still well worth it if you feel you're going to go to Broadway at least once or twice a year. Sign up for TDF and get their offers, their discounts for Broadway and off-Broadway shows. Well, TDF Stages is a website and a magazine that they put out that is edited by Raven Snook. She's also on the Drama Desk nominating committee and has written theater reviews for Time Out New York. So yeah, we're very excited. Let me share my screen one more time to bring Raven Snook into the Daverhood. And yes, her being a woman will very likely inform her category, which is performance by an actress in a featured role in a play. So take it away, Raven Snook. And we are here on the Tony Special with Raven Snook, her second visit to the Daverhood on our Tony Specials. And today she's here, by the way, she is, I should mention, the editor of TDF Stages, that's the Theater Development Fund magazine that they put out. And also she is a nominator of the Drama Desk. She's on that committee. How many shows did you have to see this year? On or off?
Well,
yeah.
I only just joined last month, so I don't know. But I think it's going to be upwards of about 230.
Yeah, 230 shows over the course of 3 years. I used to do that. But I'm looking forward to it. That's exciting.
I figured I'm seeing about that many shows anyway, so I might as well be a nominator.
Makes total sense. You're also a critic for Time Out New York, which is kind of great. And we're thrilled to have Raven back in the Daverhood to talk about actress in a featured role in a play. And so here are the nominees. There's Quincy Tyler-Bernstein for Doubt. There's also Juliana Canfield and Sarah Pidgeon, two different actresses for Stereophonic. Celia Keenan-Bolger for Mother Play, and Cara Young for Pearly Victorious. So, take it away, Raven.
Well, first off, I want to say there are no duds in this category. I think everyone totally deserves their spot. There were some, I wouldn't say egregious, but there were some people I wish I could have seen on this list. For featured actress in a musical, there's 7 nominees because there were ties. So here there are only 5. There were no ties. And I wish there had been a tie so we could have fit in Zoe Kazan, who is the only person from Doubt, a Parable, who was not nominated. And I thought she was really fantastic. And then one of my personal favorites, and I interviewed her and she's phenomenal, Frances Benhamou. She made her Broadway debut in Prayer for the French Republic, reprising roles she'd done off Broadway with, it must have been at least a 15-minute monologue in the center that was really just an incredible piece of work in terms of writing and acting. So I am a little sad not to see them, but I can't say that there's anyone on this list I would kick off. So it's not an easy swap. So I'm going to just start at the beginning.
Please.
So Quincy Tyler-Bernstein is an incredible actress who's been doing amazing work off Broadway for, it feels like decades. I don't quite know. It may not quite be 2 decades, but she's an amazing actress. And she was wonderful in this role in Doubt. It's just one scene, but it is a hell of a scene. And when Doubt had its original production, Adrienne Lennox won the Tony Award for featured actress for the part. But I've got to say, I don't think it's going to be her year. This is just a stacked list, which brings me to the 2 Stereophonic nominees. Now, Stereophonic, there's 7 actors in that play, and 5 were nominated. And it just really begs the question why the Tony Awards have not instituted a Best Ensemble Award. This happens every year. There's always a musical or a play. You look at 6, or you look at, like when Billy Elliot, when they honored all 3 boys, I guess that's not ensemble. I'm kind of getting off there. But the thing is, there's always a show where you feel like they either can't nominate anyone because everybody was great and they all had about the same amount of part, or that they don't nominate anyone. And I really wish Stereophonic had been the year where they said, we're finally going to do Best Ensemble, but they didn't. And I kind of think that Juliana Canfield and Sarah Pigeon will cancel each other out. Now, this may not happen, and I think if one of them were to win, it would be Sarah Pigeon. Her character is the one that has, I think, the biggest evolution of all the characters in the play. And it really is a spectacular performance. She also, I mean, both she and Juliana sing, but I mean, her singing is just phenomenal. So, and you know, in a play.
Yeah.
So I think
her Broadway debut, and she won the Theatre World
Yes.
Award for debut this week for that role. So yeah,
I think it's possible that she will win. Going on, Celia Keenan-Bolger, she's great. She already has a Tony. I would say that in Mother Play, even though she did a really good job, she has the least showy role. I kind of don't think it will be her year to get a second Tony, and I think she would probably agree with that. Which brings me to Carey Young. And this is the person I'm going to champion for the role. I mean, this is the person I think absolutely should win. Not just because she was brilliant and Pearly Victorious and was so funny and did slapstick, which was something I didn't know she was capable of, but this is her third year in a row being nominated as Best Featured Actress in a Play. And every year she has brought something completely different to the stage. You know, first it was Clyde's, where she was funny. I mean, but not funny in the way she is in Perfectly Victorious. And then Cost of Living, where she was absolutely harrowing as a caretaker who's fallen on hard times. I mean, she's not a caretaker. She becomes a caretaker because she's fallen on hard times. And then in this, I mean, I just thought, oh, well, you know, she's kind of funny. She'll be funny. She was so funny. And this is a part originated by Ruby Dee. And you can see a version of Ruby Dee's performance. There is a movie of Pearly Victorious. It's called Gone Are the Days. It's available on YouTube. I watched it when I came home. I was curious to see her in it. I feel like between the 3 nominations in a row for such different parts, just the great work she's been doing. She also does lots of work off Broadway and is going back off Broadway in the fall. You know, she is just spectacular. And you can see, so her show is closed, which is always not great, but it is streaming on PBS for free. So people can remind themselves of how brilliant she was. So I think it's going to be her year. But if I'm wrong, it's going to be Sarah Pigeon. That's my guess.
Yeah. Again, PBS's great performances is the place you can watch Pearly Victorious.
Right.
But let's move away from that category to ask Raven Snook, hey, of all the shows that you saw on or off Broadway this whole season, when we saw more than 200, what are one or two of your absolute favorites?
So we're only well, I didn't see 200 on Broadway. Are we talking on and off, or are we only talking on Broadway?
Or
I mean, so I'm going to be boring and say that I, like everyone else pretty much, I just adored Merrily We Roll Along. I first saw it actually the season before because it started at New York Theater Workshop, but it's one of my favorite you know, it was always one of these, it's my favorite flawed musical. And then I feel like it's almost pretty much not flawed anymore. I mean, they really, Maria Friedman's direction, I think she's going to take the Tony Award for Best Director of Musical. Just she found ways of smoothing over the things that have not worked in the past. And then that coupled with this incredible casting, the chemistry between the 3 of them, it was just phenomenal. I loved Appropriate. I was sad that I had not seen it off Broadway because there were cast members in that production I really admire who I would have liked to have seen those roles, but I thought it was just incredible. I love Stereophonic, and shout out to a fellow Sarah Lawrence alum. We both went, David Edgemy and I went to Sarah Lawrence together. We didn't really know each other, but like we went at sort of the same time.
He's
you know,
probably going to get the Best Play Tony on that.
Oh, I think he is. And honestly, I think it's possible that Stereophonic will get Best Score. And if it does, I will be cackling. I mean, it's so crazy to me they won't let them perform songs at the Tonys. And I hope that that decision is revisited. I understand it's not a Best Musical nominee, but it is a Best Score nominee. And I mean, come on, guys. Like, those songs are freaking great.
Oh, cool.
And then I guess I just want to say a few shout outs that I'm really excited this summer to see 3 shows I saw off Broadway come to Broadway. Oh, Mary, Cola Squola show, they are just so funny and brilliant in the show, and it's just a total hoot. And I really, it's like.
You want to say what Oh Mary is about?
So Oh Mary is old school queer theater on Broadway, folks. It's about Mary Todd Lincoln in the weeks leading up to the assassination, and it's a farce and a comedy. I don't want to say more. Job is coming. This is like appropriate. Is it appropriate or appropriate?
Job?
I don't know. I don't know if it's Job or Job. I think it's Job. But Job is coming to Broadway. It's a great, very twisty, well-written two-person play, one-act play, with Peter Friedman and Sydney Lemon, who's Jack Lemon's granddaughter and is quite an actress. I was not aware of her before. I don't want to say more except that somebody who lost their job and is hoping to get it back goes to the psychiatrist that needs to clear her. It's pretty great. And then Once Upon a Mattress with Sutton Foster. It was definitely one of the best things I saw off Broadway. It was at Encores, and I'm so, so, so happy that it's coming to Broadway so more people can experience it. I mean, that's a role that just is, it's perfect for her. You forget, it's not that you forget Carol Burnett, but she puts her own spin on it, and it's just wonderful.
Oh, yay. And Raven Snook is just wonderful to have in the Daverhood on these Tony shows because she's so prepared. She knows so much. She seems.
I have notes.
She has notes. Speaking of notes, last question for you, though. How do people get TDF Stages? And tell us about the magazine. What do you do for it? What's in it?
Okay. So, TDF, we're known, our biggest public facing program is the TKTS booth in Times Square that anybody can go to and get discount tickets. But we also have a lot of programs. We are a nonprofit, and our programs are all about making the theater accessible to all. So we have programs for students to see shows for free, for veterans to see shows for free, for people with physical disabilities to see shows with certain kinds of accommodations like open captioning or audio description or American Sign Language. TDF Stages is another program, and it's of TDF where I write. It's like a culture blog. You can just go to tdf.org. Just scroll down. It's on the homepage. There's a link. And one of the things that we try to do is really let people know what's out there, what's playing beyond just doing listings. So I do a lot of curated roundups by the month of off-Broadway shows to let people know all the things happening off-Broadway. I do Broadway previews like everyone else, but I think that we cover off and off Broadway in ways that really aren't happening anymore, which is kind of sad to me. But we curate and tell you these are the things that sound like good bets, and we don't just do the ones that we sell at discount prices. We tell you about everything. So, but of course, we sell many hundreds of shows a day at discount prices to our members.
Wow. Well, speaking of someone who knows and researches everything, Raven Snook, just delightful to have you in the Daverhood. What do you? Last question. Yeah. Are you watching the Tonys on TV? Do you have a Tony party? What do you do on Tony night?
So, I'm just going to watch it on TV. We used to do, we would sort of, vlog it live, but we're not doing that this year. I'm just going to watch it at home and enjoy myself and be able to yell and scream at my leisure, depending on who wins or loses. I will say I entered our Tony pool. I am always almost dead last. So this year I told them I know I'm terrible at predicting what will win. So I take everything I said today with a grain of salt, although I feel fairly confident in this category that it's one of the two I mentioned. I will say I asked them to institute a prize for least right. So hopefully they'll get me like a $5 Dwayne Reed gift card or something.
Nice.
That's what I hope.
Always right, having Raven Snook in the Daverhood. Thank you so much, and happy Tonys to you.
Thank you so much.
Raven Snook in the Daverhood, weighing in on the Tony categories on this special Total Theater Tony Show Broadway special edition of Dave's Gone By Live on this Saturday afternoon, June 15th, 2024. So, yeah, I'll make one more pitch again. See, now we get silly. Now we're in the silly moment where we're already almost a half hour.
You have to wear what she did. She had those on.
Oh, she had, that's right. Yeah.
Hers were skulls. You have to.
Yeah, I'm not going to put skulls on my head.
No, but you have to do that.
There we go. Now we're classing the show up.
You're right.
And don't forget Potato. Yeah, Potato also. Yeah. Is that a song I don't recognize it? Ba-dum-bum-bum. Ba-dum-bum. What? I may take off my jacket. Maybe not. So we've heard some wonderful people. Let's before we still have a little bit to do before we get out of here, but we've done so much, and I'm so delighted that so many people have been part of it. But hey, you know what? We have time. You know, I'm making time for a couple more trivia questions. Let's see how you guys do, and then we'll also do some thank yous, of course, for making the show so fun. So Tony nominated for his score to the musical Days of Wine and Roses is Richard Rodgers' grandson, Adam Gettle. He already has a Best Score Tony for this 2005 musical, based on Elizabeth Spencer's novella about a developmentally disabled young woman falling in love with an Italian man. Name that tuner. So give them.
Take off your, I can't distract him.
I know this is really kind of, yeah. So I'll give it to Potato, and I'm going to read the question again. And I think one or two of our contestants already, our panelists already mentioned this, but
go slow.
Here we go. Now this year, Tony nominated for his score to the musical Days of Wine and Roses is Adam Gettle, who happens to be the grandson of Richard Rodgers. Now, Gettle already has a Best Score Tony Award for this 2005 musical, based on Elizabeth Spencer's novella about a developmentally disabled young woman falling in love with an Italian man. Name that tuner. Any thoughts? Here's a clue.
Scary, light, loose. Too much light makes the baby go blind.
Great guess. Partially, sort of
light. Smoke and mirrors.
Lights
Lights out. You light up my life.
Light where? Think Italy.
Oh, light in the piazza.
Yes.
Miracle.
Maravilloso.
You must have been telepathically giving me that because I was going to say Duomo. Duomo?
We went to Italy many years ago, and we kept circling the Duomo. No matter where you went in Florence, you wandered by the Duomo.
We had always meet there, and it's like, where are we going to meet? Meet at El Duomo. I'm like, okay.
Well, and by the way, Adam Gettle, somebody else probably mentioned this, but his off-Broadway show, Floyd Collins, which was done almost 30 years ago now, is getting its Broadway debut this coming the season that's on right now.
So professional.
Well, yeah, this is before, you know, my usual show. I look ridiculous and I hit the wrong thing, but I look good. I think I look. For me, I look good. But let's do a more trivia question. Let me see if I can hold it without touching the thing. Here's me grabbing the phone. This is going to be really mega now. There you go.
Does it have you in the picture when you show? Is it just two yous or so? Is it that?
No, it's just there's no mirror effect.
You know that thing of like millions, no? Okay.
So now, now there is. Now I'm holding up the phone.
Oh yes.
So it just gets more and more and more mega.
In the phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool. Okay. Congratulations to very deserving Lifetime Achievement Tony Award winners Jack O'Brien and George C. Wolfe. Both of them great directors. So here's a list of 6 Broadway shows that were directed either by Jack O'Brien or George C. Wolfe. Can you tell who directed which? Okay, so our first one, 2008's A Catered Affair, co-written by and co-starring Harvey Fierstein.
Give me the choices.
Okay, so that's our first one.
Catered Affair, yeah.
Okay, from 2008.
I wrote that one. Give me the choices, I'll tell you.
Well, there's only 2 choices. Was that directed by
Okay.
Jack O'Brien or George C. Wolfe?
Gotta be Jack O'Brien.
Why does it gotta be Jack
Because
O'Brien?
George C. Wolfe, I think he wouldn't do that.
Well, you happen to be right. That was
I'm trying to mind meld with you so that I can get your intelligence about this because I don't know.
I have no
don't know where I
intelligence.
got Light at the Piazza. That came from nowhere. I know. I don't
Yeah,
know
that was
where it
great.
That was just channeled from probably. I'm sort of telepathically, and I'm not googling anything.
No. By the way, my wife is absolutely playing along. She's not. once a question is answered, she might look something up to add to it.
Like the Kit Kat thing I have a look at.
Now, we talked about this one in a trivia question just moments ago. Now, here's another one. Was this directed by Jack O'Brien or George C. Wolfe?
Okay.
The 2011 Broadway revival of The Normal Heart, starring Jim
Oh, that was
Parsons.
gotta be Wolf. It's a revival. Wolf is older to me.
A wolf at the door. Yeah. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
The 2003 play,
Yeah.
The Oldest Living Confederate Widow Tells All,
It's Wolf.
featuring Ellen Burstyn.
That's Wolf.
The Oldest Living. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's a Jack O'Brien.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It was a one-night flop, but it featured Ellen Burstyn on
Why-
Broadway.
what? I didn't think Jack did that.
Well, Jack O'Brien's been around as
I don't
longer
know.
and longer than,
I'm
yeah.
thinking about David. I'm just trying.
Well, here's it. We have a couple more. Is it Jack O'Brien or George C. Wolfe, who directed 2004's Caroline or Change at the Eugene O'Neill Theater?
I'm gonna say Wolf, but I think it's O'Brien.
So who are you going to say?
Let's say O'Brien.
Oh! No, it's George C. Wolfe. Yeah, I think it started at the Public Theater, in fact, when they brought
I
it
said
over.
Wolf first then.
All right. Hey, we have a couple more. Here we go. 2003, the original production
Yeah,
of the play Take Me Out, which featured Dennis O'Hare.
I'm saying Wolf.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
You have a wolf at the door. Good job. And then last one, the 2023 musical
Okay.
Shucked at the Nederlander Theater.
What shucked about? Just give me a little.
So Shucked was, let me put it this way, the working title was Hee Haw the Musical.
That's George Wolf.
No,
Oh!
Jack O'Brien directed that one. So,
Was that famous?
I think, well, it wasn't quite a hit, although the reviews were very good on it. It was supposed to be a very funny show.
Why did they make it a musical?
Well, they wanted the spirit of country music and the comedy,
Oh, they
a
wanted-
zany hee-haw-like, with a lot of silly,
Yeah.
zany jokes. Wish I'd seen it. It was supposed to be a lot of fun. All right, we have one more trivia question on this edition of Dave's Gone By, our Broadway special edition this year. Unlike the Tonys, which cover only, and by the way, if you were paying attention earlier in the 3.5 hours of this show, you've heard this title already. Unlike the Tonys, which cover only Broadway, both the Outer Critics Circle and Drama Desk consider off-Broadway productions too. Both of these organizations chose for this year's Best Revival of a Musical, a show from 1962. Revived by Classic Stage Company, this tuner features a score by Harold Rome and a book by Jerome Weidman, adapting the novel he wrote 25 years earlier. Here's your last clue. The story is about a ruthless businessman who rises in New York's garment district before falling just as hard. Give the folks a moment. Name that show.
So a button.
Oh,
Button so.
it's not needles and pins, but I'm gonna read.
Give a hint.
Well, here I'll read it again and then give a hint.
Give a hint.
So both the Outer Critics Circle and the Drama Desk gave this show the award for Best Revival of a Musical of the season, because the revival was done by Classic Stage Company of a show from 1962 that featured a score by Harold Rome and a book by Jerome Weidman, which is based on a novel he had written 25 years earlier. Now, the story of the novel and the musical is about a
Oh, is it Yentl?
No, it's not Yentl. Not back, yes. Because it is kind of, it's a Jewishy show. It's
like
the garment
Howard
district.
Loman kind of Death of a Salesman?
In a sense of someone who doesn't fall that far.
Yeah, like falls far from grace.
Yeah. Well, he deserves it because he becomes a real jerk. As a ruthless businessman who rises.
How to succeed in business?
It's kind of that idea, but darker.
Sweeney Todd.
No, not that dark. It's garment district. It's not
There's
like
no
the pastry.
cannibalism? No cannibalism. Okay.
What
No
can I?
cannibalism.
How?
Make it simple for the simple person here.
Well, all right. I'll give you the notes to this
Okay,
as a clue.
okay, I don't know what that means.
Well, it means I was going to say this after you got the answers. So
Oh,
okay.
okay, yeah.
The original 1962 production
Yeah.
launched the career of a 20-year-old singer you might have heard of named Barbara Streisand.
It's gotta be Yentl.
It's not Yentl. She took Yentl from Isaac Bashevis.
Oh, Funny Girl.
It's not Funny Girl. That's a great answer.
I know.
Fabulous answer.
Those
but
are
no.
all the ones I know.
Now, Barbara.
David Sheward, let me channel you.
Oh, I know. Well, Streisand was Tony nominated
I
for
want to
this
text
role.
you. I need to text you. Can I phone him?
You know, he would know this even without your telling him the question.
He
would
would
just
just pick up the thing. Was it Carol Burnett?
Is that Carol? By the way, and here's well, I'll give you the answer to the clue. The answer is the musical. Well, not retail, but
Wholesale? Wholesale? Wholesale shopping. Wholesale Costco.
no, it's a musical called Costco. It's called "I Can Get It For You Wholesale."
Oh, that doesn't seem like a good title, even.
It
Is
yeah.
that a good title?
For the show, it kind of is. It's a little, but anyway,
That's not memorable for me, but the theater people knew it.
they knew it. And Streisand was Tony nominated. You know who her co-star was in the original?
Ingrid Humperdinck?
Not even Lord
Lady
Humperdinck.
Gaga?
Nope. I'll give you this hint. Her first husband. Well, who would become her first husband?
Oh, what's his name? He's the furry man.
Yeah. Not her current
Elliot Gould?
Elliot Gould.
I don't know how I got that one.
That you got.
How did I get that one? I don't know where it's
Because he
from.
was playing the lead in I Can Get For You Wholesale. They fell in love and they
I
were
kept
married
having
for
the image
like
of
a
Mrs.
decade.
Robinson when you're talking, the Dustin Hoffman film, and I don't know why.
It's that era.
It
Or
felt-
it's set a little
yeah,
before
yeah.
that era, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you did well, or if you
You
even
did
do
better
well,
than me,
did
so.
well on the trivia, the Broadway trivia.
I think I should
our
I
show.
should have gone. You know what we should do?
What's
We
that?
should ask ChatGPT and see who gets it quicker. Probably ChatGPT.
Well, what, answer quicker than
she'll
what?
answer questions than me.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, as soon as you type it in, it will. That's the way it works.
I wonder if I type the words AI help, will AI help me?
That could become really meta. It would circuit the how do I help itself?
Mm-hmm.
Can AI ask AI for help?
Yes.
That's something that'll keep me up at night. I'll tell you. Hey, speaking of, let's do this. So we're late
What are we doing?
anyway. Let's be friends in the Daverhood.
But you did the sad one of the people who have departed.
People have passed, but there's people who are still alive and who have been on previous episodes of this show. So, and this also leads us into the friends who have appeared on this particular show. So again, I want to say thank you very much to John Suzuki, who this past week, his podcast Finding Better broadcast the episode that I was on. We taped it about a month ago. So yeah, go find the Finding Better podcast, hosted and produced by John Suzuki, and you'll find like a half-hour interview with yours truly. So thank you again for that. I want to, let's see, Willie Nile is going to be at Wonder Bar in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Oh wait, these are old.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't fix these up. Forgive
I
me.
don't have the.
No, today at Town Hall, excuse me, on June 15th, David Broza, he's performing. Marilyn May, on Monday, will open the American Popular Song Society tribute to Maltby and Shire, featuring all these other
When you
friends.
mentioned them, I'm putting them.
Yeah, Christiane Knoll, Steve Ross, Stephen Brinberg,
Too many
Gretchen
people.
Cryer, and Sally Mays. And that's all happening at the Cutting Room
Give me
on
a
Monday.
friend on Facebook and I'll add them so I can add them.
Oh, Natalie Douglas. Natalie Douglas on Monday is going to be doing her Juneteenth show, all about Black women singers. That is at Birdland. On Wednesday the 19th, Gary Morgenstein co-wrote, is it Morgenstein or Morgenstern? Oops, I may have written that wrong, but either way, he's got a play, or a musical, sorry, with Ellie Mayer.
Who's that
And that's
person
happening, Gary Morgenstein,
Is he in Facebook?
on June 19th. I'm trying to see. I'm printing these things out, and I'm so cheap that I'm waiting for the toner cartridge to die completely. But it's left like a blank line through my
I
whole
know,
thing
I
here.
thought you meant that on purpose.
No, not at all. I just haven't changed out the ribbon. It's something Manky and Mo, or Mushky and Mo.
I'll
Anyway,
find
look
a
for it.
second. I found him. I'm gonna.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So I'm putting friends of the neighborhood when you talk. I'm putting their names in the chat, but I can't do it as fast as I can.
Oh, so well, sorry, but there's Sally Mays. We mentioned her as part of the Cabaret Week, but we've got Sally Mays on Thursday doing Now and Then at the Green Room 42. And then also the same night, Thursday, we mentioned her before, Karen Ziemba. There's the Big Follies concert that they're doing at Carnegie Hall. She is part of that. And the same night, Thursday night, Jessica Scher's solo play, Becky Davis Ain't for Sissies, is being done at the Triad.
Give me her name again?
Jessica Scher, Sherrr. That's Becky Davis Ain't for Sissies on Thursday. All right, and then, of course, our usual thank yous to people like Vicky Quaddy out in Chicago doing Are You Smarter Than Your 8th Grade Nun? Thank you to Evan Seplow of StageBuddy.com for being such a pal all these years. And yeah, so let's get to the friends, though, the people we really want to thank for this particular special Broadway episode of Dave's Gone By, the folks who are on, lending us their intelligence and their passion for the theater on this show. So, first of all, thank you so much to sound designer Leah Gelpe. Remember, Mary Jane is on Broadway now. Go see it and listen for her work. Because what will happen is...
Douglas just popped in.
Who did?
Natalie.
Oh, Natalie Douglas?
Yeah, she
Oh, how
just
nice.
popped in.
Oh, yay.
Because I did add, so what I did was when it said Friends of the Neighborhood, I added everybody.
Yay. So, yeah, we just mentioned her that she's going to be performing this week. But Leah Gelpe. So, you know, if I tell you to listen for the sound design, you'll start in the first 10 minutes, and then you'll just get sucked into the play, which is the point. You're not supposed to notice the sound most of the time, but that's what she does. So thank you so much to her for being in the Daverhood. And I want to thank Colleen Donahue at Bum O'Brien Brown for setting up that interview for us. Now, in terms of critics, thank you to Frank Burd. Go to birdreviews.com, B-U-R-D, reviews.com, to read his reviews of Philadelphia area theater. Leslie Hoban Blake, she is, and Charlie Gross, they both co-host Two on the Aisle, which you can watch on YouTube and also Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Want to give a shout out also to our beloved Eva Heinemann.
B-U-R-D Bird.
B-U-R-D, Frank B-U-R-D Bird. I can try slowing down a little bit.
After Frank Bird, who did you say?
Charlie and Leslie.
Oh, Charlie. I'm not going to do Charlie.
Charlie, he's in synagogue. Leslie's not, but she might be sleeping in. We don't know. And then, of course, Eva Heinemann. Eva Heinemann has her show, Hi Drama, H-I, exclamation point, drama, exclamation point. And I think the Facebook page is High Dramas. They had to put an S after it. So look for it there, and you can see episodes, as well as on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Let's see, who else? Brian Scott Lipton. Yes, read him in... I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, no, I'm not sorry. They're great.
I'm like, Brian, when you mention anyone, I'm putting up, but it's hard for me. I'm not like you.
Yeah, Brian Scott Lipton, like the T.
Is it Brian, like Brian? Okay, Brian.
With an I, with a Brian.
Yeah, they were...
He was really good.
Put in Zach too?
Not yet. I haven't gotten to him. I'm doing these in alphabetical. So Brian Scott Lipton is in citytour.com, CITITOUR.com, and then he mentioned also, I think it was for Theater Pizzazz that he's doing some interviews.
I know we have him.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm slow. You keep going. I'm going to catch up.
And then Carey Purcell. Thank you very much to Carey. Let me find the name of her book again, because it's From Opera Ben to Fun Home, and it's all about the history. Here it is, A Cultural History of Feminist Theater, which just came out in the paperback version from Roman and Littlefield Books. Thank you so much to Carey. And by the way, her website again is careypurcell.com. Carey, C-A-R-E-Y. That spelling of Carey Purcell. Who else? And David Sheward. We were just talking about him, of course. He is...
After Brian Lipton, who was it?
It was Carey Purcell, C-A-R-E-Y. Purcell with two L's.
C-A-R-R?
No, C-A-R-E-Y.
Oh. I got it.
Cool. Not all these people on
Did you say
Facebook.
Zach?
I haven't gotten to Zach,
okay.
where we're doing alphabetical order, so...
So I have Brian Lipton, Carey Purcell, Eva Heinemann, Frank Bird. Okay.
Good. Charlie and Leslie and Leah Gelpe. We have also David Sheward. Leah, if she's on Facebook, I'm not sure. David Sheward, who writes for a couple of different places, and those include theaterlife.com, culturaldaily.com, and a website that I happened to found and still edit, TOTALTHEATER.com. He also has a blog called The David Desk that you're going to want to read because he writes about other things there, like old Carol Burnett shows and other things that are on his mind, as opposed to the theater reviews that he writes for these other sites. But yay, 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 always a delight having David Sheward in the Daverhood. Okay, are we ready?
I couldn't find what's Leah's?
Leah. Gelpe, Gelpe. And she is a sound designer and also a multimedia designer. And she's looking for work. So some theater company, please hire her. All right. Also, we have Raven Snook. She was our last, but certainly not our least guest in the Daverhood today. Raven Snook got a TDF. TDF Stages is the name of the magazine and the website that she edits, and she also writes for well, she's written for Time Out New York and other places as well. So thank you so much to Raven Snook for being in the Daverhood. And last but not least, we do get to Zachary Stewart, who was our first guest on the show today, way back at 9:05 in the morning. Well, Zachary is the editor of TheaterMania.com, so read all his stuff there.
Like 25 posts.
Well, yeah, all right, yay. Yay, thank you for that. Thank you to all these people. Hey, thank you to Rabbi Saul Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. His website is shalomdammit.com. So if you love theater and you want to watch his stage show, it was taped off Broadway at the Richmond Shepherd Theater when he did it, I think, back in 2012. Just go to shalomdammit.com. The link is there for that.
Didn't Evan Sepler tape it? Was he the
Evan Sepler was the camera person, and his crew. He brought a crew to do it professionally.
Well, he's a professional photographer.
It looks and videographer. It sounds great. It looks great. So check that out. It's Rabbi Saul Solomon in Shalom Dammit. Plus the rabbinical reflection that he did today. You can read and hear that as well as all his other rabbinical reflections at Shalom Dammit, DAMMIT, shalomdammit.com. Well, I want to thank also my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, for all that she does behind the scenes. I mean,
Oh, Raven's watching. Whenever I call out to someone, they watch.
Thumbs up balloon. Yeah, thank you very much,
When
Raven.
you add somebody, I'm just adding them as friends of the neighborhood, so that's why they're added.
I
And
guess
then they
it's
come
tagging
in,
in it. Yeah.
And then they get ping called in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they're watching the very, 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 very end of the show. But that's okay.
Their videos were great. They were great. Both,
So-
Natalie was excellent. Raven was excellent.
Everybody, they were all fabulous.
Yeah, and
And-
Zach let off the charge.
Yeah, and again, thank you to my wonderful, wonderful wife, and thank you to you guys for watching and telling other people about this show. Not just our annual Tony special, but every episode of Dave's Gone By that airs from 9 until noon or thereabouts, right here on this Facebook page. One last time, I'm going to ask you to make sure that you check out davesgoneby.com for all the archives, all the information about the show. We also have archives at archive.org. We also have our audio-only archives at castbox.fm. Plus, we have a YouTube channel. Don't forget our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, Radio Dave 2, as well as our Instagram page, David.Lefkowitz. I know it's a lot. And don't forget my own page for my plays and screenplays and interviews and song lyrics and detritus and poetry, DaveLefkowitz.org, DaveLefkowitz.org. Phew! Well,
Great show.
thank you, my darling.
Wonderful guests. A lot of different views. Some similarities in the shows. Some people went, fuera,
So
far afield. Yeah.
that's what it's all about. So let's go out with one of the things that I used to be able to do on these shows when I was doing them at on radio stations and at college radio was play a lot of music. I would talk about a musical and play a song, but I can't do that. because of copyright issues. We're going to play just a smidgen, just a skosh of what I'm going to call our outro theme from the Broadway musical, which was first a cast album by Sufjan Stevens, Illinois. This is Chicago. You can hum this one. So thank you one more time. Make it a great summer. Go out and see a show wherever you live. It may not be Broadway, could be regional theater, could be international theater if you go traveling, but support the theater. Remember, the Tonys are tomorrow night. Pre-show, I believe, starts at 6:30 over on Pluto TV, and then you've got the main show from 8 until 11 on CBS Paramount Plus. So yeah, all things go, we must go. And go by!
Drove to Chicago.